Chapter 389. When Qin Wenyin heard Yun Mingyi whispering in his ears, his heart involuntarily trembled. She had actually grasped the oracular chant to summon the heavenly steel. Could it be that what she said was true, that she was Princess Tianyu of Grand Xia? A low voice drifted into Qin Wentian's ears. Yun Mingyi's lips moved as a cryptic incantation floated into Qin Wentian's mind. Such a scene was extremely intimate, causing the two beauties not far away to glare at them. "Sister Qingqing, how can you not be jealous?" Bai Qing mischievously spoke, as though she was trying to sow discord between them. Mo Qingqing glared at Qin Wenyin and Yun Mingyi with hidden bitterness, causing the hearts of those who looked at her to ache. "I can't endure it." Bai Qing smiled. Mo Qingqing stared at her as she laughed. "Qing, alas, go ahead and rejoice in my misfortune." The gazes of many in the crowd shifted over. Many of them were filled with envy for Qin Wenyin. Not only was his talent outstanding, he was also surrounded by beauties. What was even more terrifying was that these beauties weren't simple at all. Mo Qingqing, the #1 beauty in the Moon continent, the heavens chosen of the Pill Emperor Hall, and Qin Wentian's lover. Bai Qing, for the sake of Qin Wenyin, was willing to endure a palm strike from him, even disregarding her own life. From this, one could see how deep her feelings for Qin Wenyin were. Not only that, she was also a heavens chosen from the mystic Moon Hall. Yun Mingyi, similarly, was ranked within the top 10 of the heavenly fate rankings. These three beauties could be said to be the most dazzling and outstanding ones in the heavenly fate rankings, and all three of them actually had a connection with Qin Wenyin. How could the crowd not be envious? There's another secret I want to tell you. It's about the purgatory vermilion bird above your head. After Yun Mingyi finished imparting the incantation, she continued speaking to Qin Wenyin. "You are the first person to enter the vermilion bird formation. The spirit of the vermilion bird formation bestowed upon you the purgatory vermilion bird. As you grow stronger, the purgatory vermilion bird will also grow stronger, gaining sentience. Hence, the purgatory vermilion bird will unceasingly devour the ancient luck of others until the very end. It will be able to summon the true spirit of the vermilion bird formation. This is the benefit of being the first to enter the formation." Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with sharpness. Yun Mingyi actually knew so much? Even if she wasn't Princess Tianyu, there was no doubt that she was related to the ancient kingdom. This caused Qin Wenyin to gradually believe in her. The vermilion bird formation was a formation that even the transcendent powers had no way to see through. It was the #1 training ground for Yuanfu cultivators in Grand Xia, yet Yun Mingyi actually knew of its secrets. Before this, everyone only wanted to be the first to enter the formation, but they didn't know the secrets within. You've obtained the first position, and your efforts weren't in vain. Your vermilion bird spirit is connected to your heart and soul. If you want it to die, it will do so without hesitation. After speaking, Yun Mingyi turned and departed. An expression of contemplation appeared on Qin Wentian's face as he stared at her departing back. After which, he inclined his head and stared at the purgatory vermilion bird in the air. The body of the purgatory vermilion bird grew even larger, exuding a terrifying aura. A strand of will appeared in Qin Wentian's heart, and momentarily, the purgatory vermilion bird seemed to understand his intentions. It slowly landed in front of him and rubbed its head against his body. "You're already a life form. How about becoming my companion in the future?" Qin Wenyin sighed. The vermilion bird spirit was already a spiritual body. It already possessed life. The purgatory vermilion bird was incomparably excited when it heard Qin Wentian's words. After which, it soared into the air, circling above Qin Wentian's head as it let out a few cries of excitement. After which, it returned to Qin Wentian's embrace, appearing exceptionally quiet. Qin Wenyin gently stroked the feathers of the purgatory vermilion bird as a gentle smile appeared on his face. Inclining his head, he smiled radiantly at Mo Qingqing and Bai Qing as they walked over. At this moment, the demonic young man was filled with a sense of tranquility. His smile was sincere and radiant, completely different from the demonic and violent demonic aura he had displayed on the arena platform. "It's about to begin." Mo Qingqing sat beside Qin Wenyin, swinging her legs as she leaned against Qin Wentian's arm. In her heart, a faint trace of worry could be seen. Would Qin Wenyan be able to retreat unscathed from the ranking battle? She could only hope that nothing bad would happen to him. It's about to begin. Qin Wentian spoke in a light voice. The two of them leaned against each other. This scene was like a scene straight out of a painting, causing people to not be able to bear to disturb them. Over the horizon, the sun gradually set. Rainbow-colored clouds floated in the air, creating a dazzling scene. "How beautiful," Emo Qingqing murmured. "Just like the winter snow, beautiful and warm." Qin Wentian's face was filled with a gentle smile. The two of them were like an immortal couple. "Qin Wentian." A voice drifted over. Si Qiong's silhouette appeared on the arena platform. His gaze was filled with coldness as he stared at Qin Wentian and Emo Qingqing. Qin Wentian dared to disregard him, arrogantly declaring that he would face Chen Wang head-on. Where did this place him, Si Qiong, stand? The spectators stared at Si Qiong. They could feel the intense battle intent radiating from him. Were the two dark horses about to clash? Before this, Si Qiong had always been regarded as the strongest dark horse. But now, Qin Wentian had slain Zhang Qin, challenging him to a duel. Next, the two most dazzling dark horses in the heavenly fate rankings would face off against each other. Who would be the strongest dark horse? Qin Wentian slowly stood up, smiling at Emo Qingqing. After which, he turned and walked out, instantly appearing on the arena platform. Above his head, the purgatory vermilion bird let out a shrill cry as a baleful light shot towards Si Qiong and the vermilion bird behind him, exuding a tyrannical aura. "Your vermilion bird ancient luck seems to be afraid." Qin Wentian casually stood there. The current him gave off a different feeling, as though the moment this delicate-looking young man erupted with power, he would be extremely terrifying. "It's just ancient luck, it's not that important. But since you rejected the exchange, I really want to see what's in your memories." Si Qiong coldly spoke. He was proficient in soul attacks, and one of his soul attacks was the Soul Search art. The first time he used it was against Mu Feng, but he failed and was poisoned. This time around he wanted to search Qin Wentian's soul. "In that case, let's fight." Qin Wentian faintly spoke. At this instant, a light breeze drifted past, fluttering the robes of the two of them. The entire space was incomparably silent. This was the battle for the position of the strongest dark horse. If Si Qiong won, he would be ranked number 2. If Qin Wentian won, he would fight against Chen Wang for the position of the top ranker. Qin Wentian stretched out his palms as demonic qi enveloped them. His arms transformed into the arms of a Kirin, glowing with a crimson light as a terrifying roar echoed out. After stepping into the 9th level of Yuanfu, how strong would Qin Wentian be? Even Qin Wentian himself didn't know. He hadn't unleashed his full strength yet. Fiend Transformation Art, 2nd level Mandate of Demons, 2nd level Mandate of Force, stacking the power of his primordial demonic bloodline, in addition to the divine energy in his body as well as the amplification from his astral souls. What level would his strength reach? Even he himself didn't know. Gotcha! A crisp sound rang out as the divine energy in Qin Wentian's Yuanfu started to tremble violently. Although he was still standing there, he gave off a feeling of strength. A demonic wind gusted as a pair of demonic wings appeared on Qin Wentian's back. With the Fiend Transformation art, he could condense demonic wings with just a single thought. Si Qiong felt the pressure as his astral souls erupted forth. His first astral soul was a wind-type astral soul, his second was a coiling water python, and his third was an evil soul. Not only that, based on the luster of his 3 astral souls, it was clear that they originated from the 4th heavenly layer, 4th heavenly layer and 5th heavenly layer respectively. How terrifying! The hearts of the spectators trembled. In terms of astral souls, there weren't many who could be compared to Si Qiong. You want to defeat me? Have you ever seen such an astral soul before? Si Qiong's lips moved again as a soul-sucking melody permeated the air, unceasingly seeping into Qin Wentian's ears. If one's soul was shaken, how could one fight? His evil soul stared at Qin Wentian, wanting to affect Qin Wentian's soul as well. Boom! In the center of Qin Wentian's brows, a third eye opened as a resplendent light flashed. His third astral soul was unleashed. It was the demon sovereign astral soul. At the instant his astral soul was released, a terrifying golden light circulated, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble. As expected of the number 1 ranked demon's sovereign astral soul in the Warbeast Index, the hearts of the spectators trembled. They had personally witnessed Qin Wenyan unleashing his demon's sovereign astral soul within the Vermilion Bird formation. 5th heavenly layer. Si Qiong furrowed his brows. But so what of it? For the top rankers on the heavenly fate rankings, their third astral souls originated from the 5th heavenly layer. Boom! Qin Wenyan took another step forward as he released his Great Dreams astral soul. A resplendent light flashed in the eyes of the spectators, causing their hearts to tremble. 5th heavenly layer. Qin Wentian's second astral soul was also condensed from the 5th heavenly layer, causing Si Qiong to feel drowsy. If it wasn't for his strong will, ordinary Yuanfu cultivators would have already fallen asleep under the pressure of this domain, allowing themselves to be trampled upon. What a terrifying astral soul! How strong is his perception? The hearts of the spectators trembled. Qin Wentian's second astral soul was already from the 5th heavenly layer. Frog at the bottom of a well. Qin Wenyan spat out, causing Si Qiong's countenance to turn incredibly unsightly. As the sound of his voice faded, he was ruthlessly slapped across the face by Qin Wenyan. Let me show you what an astral soul is. Qin Wenyan took another step forward as his first astral soul, the Heavenly Hammer astral soul, appeared. The light it emitted caused the hearts of the spectators to palpitate uncontrollably. 3 astral souls from the 5th heavenly layer. What concept was this? Ever since Qin Wenyan stepped onto the path of cultivation, he was already able to condense an astral soul from the 5th heavenly layer? How was this possible? How could he, Qin Wenyan, accomplish this? Bai Qingsong and Autumn Snow, who were in the crowd, were also stunned. So it turned out that when Qin Wenyan showed them his third astral soul, it was because he didn't want it to be too shocking. Have you seen it before? Qin Wenyan spat out a single word. Si Qiong only felt that this slap was extremely resounding. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian's silhouette disappeared. Ping! At the instant Qin Wenyan moved, Si Qiong executed stellar transposition and fled. However, he only saw Qin Wenyan instantly changing directions. Like a bolt of lightning, he stabbed out with a single finger. Instantly, a terrifying storm of demonic qi engulfed the entire space, completely enveloping it. As the finger descended, everything in the air transformed into demonic sword light, descending upon Si Qiong with terrifying speed. The entire space seemed to be on the verge of collapsing, transforming into a black hole made of swords. The energy of the entire heavens and earth were all sucked into the black hole. Although it seemed slow, it only took an instant for the sword light to reach Si Qiong. Si Qiong's countenance turned pale. His attack, defense, and speed were all extremely terrifying. For his soul attacks, he had the water armor for defense. However, in terms of strength, he was still lacking. This was also the reason why he was defeated by Chen Wang. And at this moment, Qin Wenyan didn't make a move. But when he did, it was earth-shattering. With a single finger, the black hole formed of swords pierced towards Si Qiong's heart. No matter how fast Si Qiong's speed was, no matter how strong his soul attacks were, no matter how powerful his water armor was, there was no way he could defend against this terrifying attack. Maybe Chen Wang could use his most violent attacks to counter it, but Si Qiong couldn't. Boom. A resplendent stream of light flashed as Si Qiong's body was clad in a water screen armor. This armor was formless, akin to water that draped over his body. The sword light from the black hole landed on Si Qiong's body, causing him to be flung through the air. The purgatory vermilion bird had devoured his ancient luck. Si Qiong actually broke the rules and used a divine weapon. That divine weapon is formless and formless. Si Qiong must have come from a terrifying power, using it to protect his life at the critical moment. Seeing Si Qiong's body being blasted off the platform, Qin Wentian's countenance was calm as he glanced at him. A hint of mockery could be heard in his voice. Can't even withstand a single strike, using a divine weapon to protect his life. How pitiful. However, Qin Wenyan understood that given Si Qiong's background, even if he broke the rules, Old Man Tianji and the rest wouldn't dare to do anything to him. Hence, Qin Wenyan no longer looked at Si Qiong. He shifted his gaze onto Chen Wang. His eyes were like sharp swords, piercing through space, landing on Chen Wang. It's your turn. Chapter 390. It's your turn now. A calm voice resounded through the air. Qin Wenyan was as indifferent as ever, as though his victory over Si Qiong wasn't even worth mentioning. He didn't even treat Si Qiong as his opponent. Qin Wenyan, the strongest dark horse, had finally reached the end and issued a challenge to Chen Wang. Only then would he be able to challenge the highest ranker on the heavenly fate rankings. Resplendent astral souls, a dazzling purgatory vermilion bird, and a demonic silhouette. At this moment, the feeling Qin Wenyan gave off was akin to a monarch descending from the heavens. Although he was still young, he already exuded an imposing aura. He casually stood there, as though he was looking down on all living things. Even someone as powerful as Si Qiong couldn't even withstand a single strike. With just a single strike, he was blasted off the stage, using his divine weapon to preserve his life. At this moment, Si Qiong's countenance was incomparably unsightly, alternating between shades of green and purple. The divine weapon on his body gradually vanished, transforming back into nothingness. He came to participate in the heavenly fate rankings because he wanted to obtain the secret art of Grand Xia. While he was at it, he also wanted to seize the top ranker position. Yet in the end, he was only ranked third. What was even more lamentable was that his final battle on the heavenly fate rankings was the most humiliating battle of his entire life. A single strike, only a single strike. He had broken the rules, yet Qin Wenyan couldn't even be bothered to glance at him. He only calmly spoke. Couldn't even withstand a single strike, using his divine weapon to preserve his life? How lamentable! How lamentable! He, Si Qiong, had never suffered such humiliation before. Nobody looked at him again. Although he had broken the rules and should have been punished, nobody cared about it now. In this battle platform, the winner was always the king, and the loser was the villain. No matter how dazzling your performance was, there was only one person who would be remembered by the countless spectators. That person was the top ranker. Glancing left and right, Si Qiong couldn't see many gazes on him. Even if there were, they were filled with pity. He had lost too miserably in this battle, too humiliating. He even wanted to roar in rage and fight again. Yet all he could do was silently descend to the ground, staring at the silhouette that issued the final challenge to Chen Wang. Chen Wang inclined his head, staring at the silhouette on the arena platform. When he saw Qin Wenyan exploding forth with a single strike against Si Qiong, Chen Wang finally felt the threat. That silhouette on the arena platform had the strength to fight against him. Qin Wenyan's 3 astral souls were all so dazzling that even he had no choice but to admit that in the entire Grand Xia, he had never seen a second astral soul like Qin Wenyan. 3 astral souls from the 5th heavenly layer. Qin Wenyan had completely toppled the understanding of the crowd. Although the figures in the void corridor appeared calm, they were extremely shocked in their hearts. From the start of the heavenly fate rankings, that inconspicuous young man had now become the most dazzling existence. In terms of talent, there was no doubt that he had already surpassed Chen Wang. Even if he was defeated, the spectators couldn't help but admit that Chen Wang's talent was still a far cry from Qin Wenyan's. What kind of monster did you meet? Bailu Jing drew in a deep breath. He didn't know how to describe Qin Wenyan. Maybe he could only use the word monster to describe him. How could she have known that Qin Wenyan would be able to achieve such a feat? He was only 20 years of age, yet he was already standing at the peak of the heavenly fate rankings. Who would have thought that? Even the White Deer Institute didn't dare to imagine this. What was even more shocking was that Qin Wenyan's attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions were already at the level of a 4th-ranked Grandmaster, and that was before he was 19 years old. Those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan were all stunned, Yet they only saw an expression of excitement on Ouyang Guangxing's face. This bastard truly caused them to be speechless, giving them such a huge surprise. However, this was truly exciting enough. Ouyang Ting was completely dumbfounded. She didn't dare to believe that what she was seeing was real. Bai Fei from the Pill Emperor Hall also had the same feeling as Ouyang Ting. Bai Fei had always been secretly in love with Zhan Qin. She had always been secretly in love with that heavens chosen from the Pill Emperor Hall. However, he had died in Qin Wentian's hands. This young man whom she had once humiliated and disdained, his radiance had long surpassed that of Zhan Qin. Staring at the three astral souls, as well as the fact that Qin Wentian issued a challenge to Chen Wang, Bai Fei didn't know why, but she couldn't bring herself to hate Qin Wentian at all. Maybe it was because she truly felt that she and Qin Wentian weren't people from the same world. They weren't even on the same level. She was merely a jackdaw, while Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing were the two phoenixes. She couldn't help but sigh. The changes in the world were too fast. Not even 5 years had passed, yet the heavens and earth had been turned upside down. A young man and woman from a small country had already appeared before the eyes of the people of Grand Xia, dominating the heavenly fate rankings. The once proud and arrogant Bai Fei, in front of them, seemed so tiny and insignificant. Xu Ruanyu was also staring at Qin Wentian in the air. She couldn't help but to feel a sense of absurdity. Back then when Qin Wentian kidnapped her, what would happen if something happened between the two of them? Xu Ruanyu cursed herself silently, yet she knew that the shock brought to her by this young man would forever be imprinted in her mind. Because once upon a time, she had been abducted by this man, and it was precisely because of this memory that she couldn't remember that she could feel the impact of it even more. Chen Wang's silhouette finally stepped onto the Vermilion Bird Arena platform, walking in front of Qin Wentian. In the vast space, not a single sound could be heard. This battle would be the final showdown. It would determine who would be the first ranker on the heavenly fate rankings. Who would stand at the peak? They had once thought that Chen Wang would be the first ranker for sure. But now they started to doubt themselves. The impact brought to them by Qin Wentian was too great. Qin Wentian was an unrivaled existence at the same level, but after he revealed his cultivation base at the 9th level of Yuanfu, would Chen Wang be able to stop him? The answer would be revealed in this battle. Chen Wang didn't say anything. The flames on his body erupted forth as the astral light shone resplendently. He actually had 2 fire-type astral souls. The first was a flame incarnation astral soul, while the second was a magma giant astral soul. Both of them were filled with the power of fire, and the third astral soul was a psychedelic shadow astral soul. This psychedelic shadow astral soul allowed him to summon an incarnation as strong as himself for combat. The combination of these 3 astral souls, in addition to Chen Wang's great solar universe art, allowed his combat prowess to reach the pinnacle of Yuanfu. He could even defeat those who had just broken through to Heavenly Dipper. Before this, Chen Wang had always been the one with the strongest attacks. But now, the person standing in front of him actually had the qualifications to challenge him. Qin Wentian's strength was also so overwhelming that it caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Boom boom! The 2 magma giants formed by Chen Wang separated from Chen Wang's body, exuding an aura so terrifying that it caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. And at the same time, Qin Wentian stared at the heavens. A resplendent beam of astral light shot down from the heavens, cascading onto him as a gigantic figure descended from the skies. Pung! A raging wind swept across the heavens and earth. The descent of the golden primal ape caused the entire Vermilion Bird Arena platform to tremble violently. It was as though a golden primal ape had descended from the heavens, causing the hearts of the spectators to shudder. Pung, pung, ping. One after another, terrifying ancient demonic beasts descended upon the arena platform. They were all summoned by Qin Wentian. Back then, Qin Wentian had obtained quite a number of demonic beasts from the refinement grounds. From there, he was able to sense their corresponding constellations in the heavens. Hence, Qin Wentian was able to summon them here. Not only that, right now, Qin Wentian's cultivation base was already at the 9th level of Yuanfu. These summoned demonic beasts were all at the pinnacle of Yuanfu, just short of breaking through to Yuanfu. Before this, he had always been able to summon demonic beasts across realms, but this time around, because he had already reached the critical point of his cultivation base, he was unable to do so. However, the summoned demonic beasts were all at the pinnacle of Yuanfu. Each and every one of them was so terrifying that it caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Chen Wang's clones, as well as the demonic beasts summoned by Qin Wenyin, all dashed out, madly clashing against each other. In an instant, the entire arena platform trembled unceasingly. That terrifying collision contained an incomparable amount of power, yet Qin Wenyin and Chen Wang still stood opposite each other, staring at each other. In their eyes, there was only their opponent. "I really want to see how strong you are." Chen Wang stepped out, his body was like flames, akin to a fiery god of war. "As you wish." Qin Wenyin calmly replied as he similarly stepped out towards his opponent. Boundless power was contained within his arms. Both of their fists blasted out at the same time. Fiery fists and demonic fists instantly collided together. The flames on Chen Wang's body surged up to Qin Wenyan's arms, turning his entire body into a ball of fire. This is still not enough. Qin Wenyan stared at his opponent as he calmly spoke. He retracted his fist and punched out once more. Chen Wang did the same as Qin Wenyan, punching out with his great solar universe art to the extreme, as well as his will of mandates. Boom, boom, boom. With Qin Wenyan and Chen Wang at the center, terrifying currents of energy flowed around them in a frenzy. On both sides of them, the clones and demonic beasts were also frenziedly clashing against each other. Such a tyrannical style of combat caused the blood of the spectators to boil. Qin Wenyan's body was about to transform into a body of flames, while Chen Wang's internal organs felt as though they were about to shatter. The will of their mandates were acting on their bodies. Ping! Another violent collision. Chen Wang was forced back a few steps. His two clones also retreated to his side, fusing together with him. He transformed into a flaming giant, glaring at Qin Wenyin as though he wanted to crush Qin Wenyin into pieces. Boom! Qin Wenyan's physique was also undergoing a transformation. His bloodline frenziedly surged as he unleashed the full might of the fiend transformation art. His physique grew taller and taller, resembling a monarch of the heavens. The two of them rushed towards each other once more. The demonic beasts summoned by Qin Wenyan also rushed towards Chen Wang. An incomparably gigantic flaming palm slammed towards Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan didn't use his speed to evade. Instead, he used the most direct method to respond. The ancient imprint in his palms blasted out as the divine energy in his body erupted forth. Purng, purng. The heavens and earth trembled as the demonic beasts frenziedly attacked Chen Wang. They didn't evade, but chose to clash head-on. Chen Wang's second level of mandates had already reached the advanced boundary, and he cultivated the great solar universe art. His great solar body seemed to be able to amplify his attacks, causing his strength to be unimaginably strong. However, Qin Wenyan's strength was also at the pinnacle of the same level. It was unknown how terrifying his strength was. Rumble! Finally, a deafening sound echoed out as one of Chen Wang's arms exploded. That seemingly invincible flaming giant's arm was actually shattered into pieces. Did this mean that the victor of the heavenly fate rankings was about to be decided? All along the way, in a situation where everyone thought it was impossible, he actually managed to turn the tides and stand at the peak of the heavenly fate rankings? Everyone felt their blood boiling. That dark horse was unstoppable. Was it the dark horse that had reached the pinnacle of the world? Chapter 391. Chen Wang's gigantic body retreated a step. One of his arms had actually been forcibly destroyed. Qin Wenyan's entire body was engulfed in flames, yet his eyes shone with a bright light, as though he could still persist on. Strength, can you do it? Qin Wenyan stared ahead as he stomped his foot forward, causing a thunderous sound to ring out. He still exuded the aura of an unexcelled king, looking down on all living beings. So what if he was facing the great Solar King? At the same cultivation level, his strength was invincible. Chen Wang stared fixedly at Qin Wenyan. At the instant Qin Wenyan's palm imprint blasted out, Chen Wang stomped on the ground as astral light erupted forth. His silhouette vanished from sight. This was none other than stellar transposition. Although he knew that Qin Wentian's perception was extremely terrifying and could easily sense the trajectory of stellar transposition, he still didn't hesitate to use it. At that instant, the crowd saw Qin Wentian's silhouette turning around like a phantom, pointing his finger at the empty space. The heaven-breaking finger blasted out once again as a black hole appeared, capable of annihilating everything in its path. Over there, Chen Wang's left palm imprint slammed down from the heavens. The gigantic palm imprint wanted to crush everything into pieces, shattering everything into nothingness. The energy in the air exploded madly. Qin Wentian's left palm slammed out as numerous ancient bells transformed into a straight line, slamming into Chen Wang's flaming body. The sound of the bells lingered in the air. The crowd only saw the collision of their right hands. It was as though the heavens and earth were collapsing. Qin Wentian's left palm strike caused Chen Wang's body to tremble violently. Even though he had transformed into a magma giant and possessed the great solar Dharma body, he was still a human after all. He had a heart. The heartbreak bell heartbreak. Each and every ancient bell directly slammed into Chen Wang's chest, causing his heart to throb madly and expand. Chen Wang could clearly feel his heart expanding, as though it was about to explode. Bang! Astral light flashed once more as stellar transposition was executed. Chen Wang's silhouette vanished once more, but Qin Wentian also moved. His wings fluttered as he shot towards the edge of the arena platform. The ancient bells in his palms struck out simultaneously, and the chimes of the ancient bells resonated with each other, transforming into an unending stream of sharp blades. Chi! Chen Wang spat out a mouthful of crimson flames, akin to lava. Stepping off the platform once more, his silhouette instantly left the platform. However, Qin Wentian didn't seem to be willing to spare him. He chased after him as the chimes of the ancient bell blasted out in a frenzy. This was decided by Chen Wang and the others. It was hard to say who would die in the heavenly fate ranking battle. Chen Wang let out a roar, and his body split into three again. Two lava giants rushed towards Qin Wentian. He himself had used the revolving star transposition once again, and the elemental energy in his body was almost depleted. Bang, bang, the two lava giants were smashed into smithereens, while Chen Wang's body finally landed on the ground. This also meant that he had been defeated in the ranking battle this time around. The number 1 ranker had left him. He was still number 2 on the heavenly fate ranking. Standing on the ground, Chen Wang inclined his head, only to see Qin Wentian staring down at him from the air. An intense feeling of humiliation permeated the air. He had been defeated by the person who had once looked down on him. Back in the Vermilion Bird Formation grounds, he had even hunted down Qin Wentian, unexcelled in the world. Yet now, he was defeated in a direct confrontation. How cruel was this blow? You, number 1? Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with disdain. The heavenly fate ranking battle hasn't ended yet you're already claiming to be number 1 and number 2? Truly an eye-opener. As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wentian returned to the arena platform. He didn't continue to mock Chen Wang. All words couldn't be compared to his actions. Chen Wang had once claimed to be number 1, as though he already stood at the peak of the heavenly fate ranking. Now that he was defeated by Qin Wentian, it was no different from slapping his own face. If it was anyone else who obtained the 2nd rank, it would be extremely glorious. But how would people evaluate Chen Wang? Hua Taishu didn't participate in the heavenly fate rankings this time around. Chen Wang's position was equivalent to the highest ranker on the heavenly fate rankings, and he had always been aiming for the number 1 position. But in the end, he was defeated by the person he once hunted down in the most tyrannical manner possible. To Chen Wang, this was a great humiliation. He didn't step into Heavenly Dipper because he wanted to participate in the heavenly fate ranking, yet he was still ranked number 2. Winner takes all. Chen Wang had been defeated. Everyone's gazes slowly shifted over, looking at the arena platform. Qin Wentian, when he participated in the ranking battle, he was a nameless nobody with a cultivation base at the 7th level of Yuanfu. In the first round, he obtained the right to participate in the Heavenly Fate ranking battle. He had the most drumbeats, a record for this year's ranking battle. In the second round, Yang Fan, Duan Qingshan, and the rest obstructed his path in the life and death river, wanting to force him into the river. Yet instead, he killed Duan Qingshan, a ranker on the Heavenly Fate ranking. In the third round, he surpassed Chen Wang and Sherpadian, donning the platinum battle robe and obtaining the right to be the first to enter the Vermilion Bird formation. Because of this, he offended Chen Wang, and because of this, he forced Qin Wenyan to give up his right to be the first to enter, allowing him to enter first. Qin Wenyan didn't bother with him. For these 3 rounds, Qin Wenyan passed all of them, and his performance was extremely dazzling. But although he attracted the attention of the crowd, no one really thought highly of him. At the very most, they only felt that he had a chance of entering the Heavenly Fate ranking. After which, he stepped into the formation and obtained the Purgatory Vermilion Bird, starting his path of ascension. Step by step, he walked all the way to the peak. The gentle breeze fluttered his robes as the Purgatory Vermilion Bird hovered in the air above his head. This scene caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. This dark horse had truly walked all the way to the end. Nobody could have predicted that Qin Wenyan would be the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings. In the air, Old Man Tianji stared at the arena platform. There was no longer a need to doubt the identity of the Demon Star. If he wanted to change the fate of Grand Xia, the only way was for the Demon Star to fall. However, since the Demon Star had already been born, it meant that his fate was already set in stone. It wouldn't be an easy task for him to fall. Today, Qin Wenyan would have to face a calamity. But as for the ending of this calamity, even he had no idea. The countenances of those from the Pill Emperor Hall were all extremely complicated. Luo He's eyes were as calm as ever, but waves of shock could be felt in her heart. If it wasn't for the fact that Emo Qingcheng was the chosen one, maybe her attitude would be different. The countenances of those from the Hua clan were ice cold. They wanted nothing more than to kill Qin Wenyan. Never would they have imagined that Qin Wenyan would be ranked first. Those from the Qin clan, Shi clan and Wang clan were all speechless. For the first time, the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings was actually a nameless character. He didn't belong to any of the transcendent powers in Grand Xia. The Ouyang aristocrat clan had some thoughts in their minds. Ouyang Guangxing and Qin Wenyan had an extraordinary relationship. If Qin Wenyan could grow up well, it wouldn't be too bad for the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Xu Ruanyu, Xian Yan, Xian Xan and the rest were all speechless. Emo Qingcheng and Bai Qing only had light smiles on their faces. Chu Mang, Fan Lu and the rest all clenched their fists, feeling pride for him. Bai Lu Jing and Bai Lu Yi, as well as those from the White Deer Institute, all sighed with emotion. They were all anticipating Qin Wentian's extraordinary performance, but when Qin Wenyan actually stood at the peak of the Heavenly Fate rankings, they couldn't help but feel a sense of surrealism. They didn't dare to believe it. Mustang's body was trembling from excitement. The muscles on his face twitched, but there was no way to conceal the smile on his face. Teacher, junior brother, he's already standing at the peak of Yuanfu in Grand Xia. This fellow is only 20 years of age, yet he's already accomplished things that many would never be able to achieve in their entire lives. Luo Huan's smile was radiant. She was truly moved. The Heavenly Fate rankings, the highest level of glory in Grand Xia. Tens of millions of geniuses were contending for it, and Qin Wenyan had actually obtained the first rank. Mustang stared at Qin Wentian's silhouette as he spoke with pride. Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that my disciple would be able to achieve such accomplishments that I didn't even dare to imagine. Master, it's still too early. This fellow is only 20 years old, and we don't know what he'll be like in the future. Don't be too agitated. Luo Huan smiled lightly, but her left hand was trembling slightly, betraying her emotions. She, too, was incomparably agitated. Ever since she came to Grand Xia, she was extremely familiar with the names of the transcendent powers. The Pill Emperor Hall, Hua clan, Ouyang clan, Great Solar Chen clan, they were all so lofty and unreachable. Some of the heavens chosen among them were legendary characters, but so what? Now, all of them had been defeated by her junior brother. If the people of Chu knew that the Sky Harmony City's Qin Wenyin had created such a miracle in Grand Xia, one could only imagine what they would think in their hearts. Engrave the rankings. Old man Tianji slowly spoke, causing the gazes of the crowd to shift in his direction. The heavenly fate rankings floated in the air as old man Tianji began to engrave the rankings. Because of Zhang Chen's death, the rankings at the bottom of the rankings were all pushed forward. As for the top 3 rankings, there were no changes. Number 3 on the heavenly fate rankings, Si Qiong. Number 2 on the heavenly fate rankings, Chen Wang. Number 1 on the heavenly fate rankings, Qin Wenyin. When the 3 words Qin Wenyin were engraved on the heavenly fate rankings, the spectators drew in a deep breath. They knew that from now on, Qin Wentian's name would become a symbol of Grand Xia, just like Hua Taishu, a symbol of a generation. His name would shake Grand Xia, he would become the idol of countless youths, a goal they would strive to achieve. From today onwards, there would be countless people talking about him, worshipping him, recounting his deeds, and digging out everything about him. He swept away all the heavens chosen on the heavenly fate rankings. He stood together with the number 1 beauty of the moon continent, Mo Qingqing, holding hands, resembling an immortal couple. Their story would surely become a legend. Not only that, there would be many rumors circulating, such as, Qin Wenyin came to the heavenly fate rankings for the sake of Mo Qingqing, disregarding everything, using an incomparably resolute will to obtain the first rank. Qin Wentian. At this moment, old man Tianji called out. Qin Wentian shifted his gaze onto him, only to hear old man Tianji slowly continuing, this time around, you've obtained the first rank on the heavenly fate rankings. This will be a precious experience for you on your path of cultivation. I hope that in the future, you will be able to persist in your heart and pursue even higher realms. Many thanks, Senior. Qin Wenyin bowed slightly to old man Tianji. This was indeed a precious experience for him. It was the same for those who had participated in the heavenly fate rankings and were still alive. This time around, the ranking battle of the heavenly fate rankings in Grand Xia has come to an end. Your glory in the ancient kingdom will forever be engraved in this place. Old man Tianji stared at the silhouettes of the crowd as he announced. His words signified the end of this year's heavenly fate rankings. This year's heavenly fate rankings was the most fascinating ranking battle they had ever seen. It would forever be engraved in their memories, never to be forgotten. Chapter 392. Qin Wentian slowly turned, staring at the familiar silhouettes of the crowd. He glanced at his teacher Mustang and his senior sister Luo Huan. He glanced at Ouyang Guangxing, Fan Lu and Chu Meng. He glanced at Mo Qingqing and Bai Qing as a faint smile appeared in his eyes. He had succeeded. Ha, how satisfying! A hearty voice rang out as Ouyang Guangxing's silhouette soared up into the skies, landing on the arena platform. First ranker of the heavenly fate rankings, I've truly lost all faith this time around. Chu Meng, Fan Lu, Mo Qingqing and the rest all stepped onto the arena platform. Now that the heavenly fate rankings had ended, those rules naturally no longer existed. Bailu Jing and Bailu Yi also stepped onto the arena platform. They stood at the side, staring at the celebratory crowd as Qin Wenyin held Mo Qingqing's hand in his. Bailu Yi also smiled. Her innocent countenance was exceptionally beautiful when she smiled. She sincerely wished Qin Wenyin well. Boss, this battle was so satisfying. Looking at the sullen expressions on their faces, it's so satisfying. A smile could be seen on Fan Li's chubby face. Qin Wenyin stared at the faces of the crowd, feeling a sense of gratitude in his heart. He knew that although he was the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings, he had also offended too many people in the heavenly fate rankings. Not only that, these people were still willing to come all the way here to celebrate with him, standing together with him on the platform. They weren't here to bask in his glory, but rather, to tell him that they were standing together with him. Qin Wentian's heart was truly moved. These people were his life and death brothers, his friends. Little junior brother, your luck with women isn't bad at all. Luo Huan giggled as she stared at the beauties beside Qin Wenyin. Mo Qingqing, Bai Qing and even Yun Mingyi were all here. Upon seeing the ambiguous look in Luo Huan's eyes, Qin Wendian couldn't help but roll his eyes. Luo Huan truly loved to joke around. Little rascal in her embrace transformed into a beam of white light and instantly scuttled into Qin Wentian's embrace. Tilting its head, it stared at the purgatory vermilion bird in the air, as though it was demonstrating its dominance. The purgatory vermilion bird let out a low cry and swooped down, wrapping its wings around Qin Wenin. Because of its huge body, Qin Wentian's entire body was wrapped up by the purgatory vermilion bird's wings, causing the people around to laugh. Did the two demonic beasts also know how to fight for favor? The spectators below all stared at the youthful silhouette standing on the platform, filled with boundless vitality. They all felt a warmth in their hearts, feeling extremely touched. Of course, they also understood the situation Qin Wenian was facing, but the feelings of these young people had already transcended that sense of crisis. They trusted each other and treated each other as family. The first thing they did was to celebrate Qin Wenin. It had been a very long time since they had seen such a touching scene. That tyrannical young man was cold and violent, merciless and merciless. Who would have thought that he would have such a warm side to him? There were so many friends who were willing to stand together with him in the future, no matter how difficult it would be. In the direction of the Mystic Maiden Palace, Xian Exin dashed over, only to be held back by Xian Yan. "What are you doing?" "I'm going to congratulate him." Xian Exin turned her head back. "Do you know what the current situation is?" Xian Yan glared at Xian Exin. This last was too rash. This time around, the person who obtained the top position in the heavenly fate rankings was Qin Wenin, not someone from the 7 transcendent powers. Such a situation had never happened before, not to mention that Qin Wenin had already offended so many people. Who knew what would happen next? "I know, but he's Fan Li's brother. Isn't this what I should do?" Xian Exin laughed. Xian Yan's hand loosened, and Xian Exin instantly slipped away, dashing towards the arena platform as well. This caused Xian Yan to be in a daze. She turned her gaze onto the platform and found the honest-looking young man, Chu Mang. Her heart was in a state of turmoil. Nonsense. A beautiful woman from the Mystic Maiden Palace couldn't help but be taken aback when she saw Xian Exin dashing up. After which, she berated, "Xian Exin, come back here." On the arena platform, Qin Wenian and the rest all heard this voice. Turning back, they saw Xian Exin standing at the edge of the platform. Her back was facing her master as she made a face at Qin Wenin. "Congratulations on obtaining the top position in the heavenly fate rankings. You are much more powerful than a certain someone. That was an accident." Fatty Fan Lu smiled. He was naturally the person Xian Exin was referring to. "Yes, it was an accident." Xian Exin smiled mischievously. Qin Wenin glanced in the direction of the Mystic Maiden Palace as he spoke to Xian Exin. "Xian Exin, you should return first." With regards to Xian Exin's kind intentions, he understood and accepted them. It was truly a wonderful thing for Fan Lu to have such a pure and innocent girlfriend. "I know." Xian Exin glared at Qin Wenin, before reluctantly returning to the Mystic Maiden Palace. "Qingqing, you should come back as well." In the direction of the Pill Emperor Hall, Luo He stared at Mo Qingqing as she spoke. Mo Qingqing turned her gaze onto Luo He as she replied, "Master, you promised me." What she was referring to was that Luo He had personally promised that as long as Qin Wenian defeated Zhang Qin, she wouldn't interfere in the matters between her and Qin Wenian. "I've already promised you. Don't tell me I, your master, will go back on my words? Come here first and follow me back later. If he wishes to woo my disciple, he can go to the Pill Emperor Hall himself." Luo He coldly stated, causing Mo Qingqing to hesitate. She naturally wanted to be together with Qin Wenian, but her master Luo He treated her very well. Luo He's words didn't seem to have any intentions of stopping her, she only wanted her to return first. "Qingqing, you should go back first." Qin Wenian walked up, holding onto Mo Qingqing's hands as he spoke in a low voice. If the Pill Emperor Hall wanted to stop him no matter what, there was nothing he could do. If he could ease the tension between them, he was willing to do so for the sake of Mo Qingqing. After all, Zhang Chen couldn't represent the Pill Emperor Hall. The hatred between him and Zhang Chen was one of life and death. Hence, he had no hesitation in killing Zhang Chen. Mo Qingqing inclined her head slightly, staring at Qin Wenyan only to see Qin Wenyan smiling at her as he spoke in a low voice. Go. His current strength was still insufficient to shake the Pill Emperor Hall. For the sake of Qingqing, he was willing to take a step back. But if the Pill Emperor Hall went back on their words, he would definitely flatten the Pill Emperor Hall and bring Mo Qingqing away. Let's hope that things wouldn't come to that. After all, he didn't have any deep grudges with Mo Qingqing's master, Luo He. Mo Qingqing tightly held onto Qin Wentian's hands as she nodded her head, reluctantly releasing them. After which, her silhouette flickered as she returned to the direction of the Pill Emperor Hall. Let's go. Luo He spoke. With a wave of her sleeves, she led those from the Pill Emperor Hall away. Mo Qingqing turned her head back and stared at Qin Wenyan, her eyes filled with longing and reluctance. After this matter is concluded, I will return to the Moon Continent. Qin Wenyan smiled as he spoke in a clear voice. Mo Qingqing nodded her head lightly, her eyes filled with tears. They had only been together for a short period of time, and now they had to separate again. Qin Wenyan felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. He hated himself for not having enough strength. If he was the top ranker in the Heavenly Dipper rankings, what could these people from the Pill Emperor Hall do to him? How could they take away a woman from his side? But now, it was also good that Mo Qingqing left. After all, he himself didn't know what would happen next. It's also good that she left. In this place, your hands and feet would be tied. Don't underestimate these transcendent powers too much. I'm afraid things won't go smoothly between you and her. Yun Mingyi walked to the side of Qin Wenyan as she spoke in a low voice. I'm afraid the Pill Emperor Hall thinks that you won't be able to live past today. Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened. Yun Mingyi's words contained hints of maturity. Currently, other than giving Qin Wenyan a sense of mystery, there was also a sense of calmness and maturity. It was as though nothing in the world would be able to affect her state of heart. The Heavenly Fate rankings have concluded. Everyone, please disperse. The ancient kingdom of Grand Xia shall be closed. Only those who manage to enter the Heavenly Fate rankings can remain here and pay their respects to the ancient kingdom. At this moment, a clear voice drifted down from the heavens, resounding throughout the entire space. It was unknown who the speaker was. This scene caused the hearts of Qin Wenyan and the rest to tremble. Most probably, this was the voice of Si Qiong's faction. These people were eyeing the secret art within the Vermilion Bird Formation like a tiger eyeing its prey. I participated in the ranking battle of the Heavenly Fate rankings and obtained the ancient luck of Grand Xia. Now that I've succeeded, I shall no longer pay any attention to the ancient kingdom. A person calmly spoke. The person who spoke was none other than Qin Zheng. He could also sense that these people had ill intentions. If they stayed behind, wouldn't they be slaughtered by others? This is the tradition of Grand Xia, how can we abandon it? The voice in the air continued, containing traces of coldness and tyranny. I believe we should have the freedom to do so. Qin Zheng faintly spoke. Obtaining the ancient luck of Grand Xia yet refusing to pay respects to our ancient kingdom. What are your intentions? The ice-cold voice contained a powerful might within. That person from the Chun clan spoke. This is the tradition of the ancient kingdom, we cannot abandon it. The countenances of Qin Wenyan and the rest froze. Before this, these people wanted to exchange their secret arts but they didn't agree. Now, they wanted to force them to stay behind. This is the tradition of Grand Xia. That person from the Hua clan spoke. We cannot abandon it. That person from the Wang clan stated, all of them harboring unfathomable intentions. They, the 7 great clans of Grand Xia, most probably had a connection with the power that Si Qiong was from. In fact, Qin Wenyan guessed that the destruction of Grand Xia back then had something to do with them. After all, the true records of that period of history had already been erased. If you all dare to disrespect the ancient kingdom, spit out the ancient luck you obtained and cripple it. The ice-cold voice drifted down from the heavens. It wouldn't stop until it achieved its goal. Are you all really from the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia? Why are you hiding your heads but showing your tails? Qin Wenin inclined his head, his eyes gleaming with sharpness. As the sound of his voice faded, a group of silhouettes soared up into the skies from the depths of the royal palace, instantly descending upon this space. This group of people were all extraordinary. Just by casually standing in the air, they gave off a terrifying feeling. Their auras weren't any weaker compared to those from the various transcendent powers. Only to see that their gazes were sharp as they stared at the arena platform. Which power do you belong to? The person in the lead was a middle-aged man clad in golden robes, exuding an extraordinary aura. He stared at Qin Wenin as he coldly asked, "I don't belong to any transcendent power." Qin Wenin replied, "Fine, since you obtained the ancient luck of Grand Xia, it can also be considered fate. I shall bestow you a chance. Join us and we will definitely help you grow. How about it?" The golden-robed middle-aged man had a heart filled with love for talent. He stared at the crowd as he continued, "Those who obtained ancient luck are all fated. I shall bestow you all with good fortune." Although this person sent out an invitation out of love for talent, his words were filled with arrogance. Bestowing good fortune to everyone caused a strange feeling to appear in the hearts of the crowd. This wasn't like what the rumors said, that the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia was only left with a weak and feeble branch. These people in front of them had strength comparable to the strongest transcendent powers. Chapter 393. Old Man Tianji and the other transcendent powers didn't interfere. It was as though this matter had nothing to do with them. This caused the spectators to silently speculate, what were the identities of these people exactly? The destruction of the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, what kind of unknown story was hidden within? Most probably, what they knew were only half-truths. It was rumored that a few thousand years ago, the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia was so powerful that even the combined forces of the 36 transcendent powers couldn't be compared to the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. After that, a terrifying war occurred, causing the heavens to crumble and the earth to split apart. Only after that did the 9 transcendent powers establish a foothold in the 9 continents. There was no way to verify any of this. The eyes of Qin Wenin and the rest flickered. These people should have a close relationship with the various transcendent powers. Chen Wang and the rest had already agreed to the exchange, and when Luo He brought Mo Qingqing away, they also didn't obstruct her. Mo Qingqing was also one of those who had obtained ancient luck. Qin Wenin, Qin Zheng, Mu Feng and Yunming. The 4 of them had obtained ancient luck, and most probably had secret arts that they knew. Not only that, they didn't trade with the other party. The 4 of them were naturally the targets of these people. At this moment, Qin Zheng and Mu Feng's eyes were filled with coldness. Although the other party had sent out an invitation, they weren't willing to accept it. With their talent and determination, it wasn't difficult for them to join a transcendent power. However, they had to follow their hearts before they could cultivate in peace. Naturally, the transcendent powers they were in love with must belong to. And now, although the other party had sent them an invitation, they were too domineering. They naturally didn't like it. Not only that, even if they joined them, wouldn't they be trampled upon by others? Who knew what would happen in the future? These people had the ability to search souls. What if they wanted to search their memories? Such humiliation, they had no way to endure it. Hence, they naturally weren't willing. However, the origins of these people seemed to be extremely terrifying. Even Old Man Tianji, who was in charge of the heavenly fate rankings, fell silent. Qin Wenin and Yunming also had the same thoughts. Such an invitation, how could they accept it? The purgatory vermilion bird hovered in the air above Qin Wentian's head, letting out an enraged screech at the silhouettes in the air. It was as though the purgatory vermilion bird could sense everything happening here, and knew that these people had ill intentions. Evil creature! The golden-robed man waved his hand, and a resplendent beam of light shot out. The purgatory vermilion bird's silhouette flickered, but with a piercing sound, the purgatory vermilion bird let out a miserable shriek as a certain part of its body was pierced through, causing fresh blood to flow out. It flapped its wings with all its might, and its eyes revealed a fierce light, as if it was unyielding. A cold light flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes as he floated into the air. Looking at the purgatory vermilion bird's bleeding wings, he stretched out his hand and gently stroked it. The purgatory vermilion bird let out a low cry and gently embraced Qin Wentian's body with its wings. There was a look of reluctance in its eyes, as if it wanted to say goodbye. This gaze caused Qin Wentian's heart to tremble. Inclining his head, his eyes flashed with anger. "Sir, you are a senior, and since you claim to be someone from the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, why do you treat this vermilion bird in such a manner? We are the lords of the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. Just a mere spirit formed from ancient luck. How dare you be so impudent? How can we not punish you?" The golden-robed man's voice was filled with arrogance, as though he was warning Qin Wenyin and the others. Now that they were in control of everything, if they wanted to retaliate, they would have to be prepared to suffer the same fate as the purgatory vermilion bird. Qin Wenyin naturally understood the meaning behind the words. His gaze grew even colder, yet the purgatory vermilion bird gently caressed him with its wings as it let out a low cry. Its eyes were filled with longing as it stared at Qin Wenyin, filled with reluctance. It was a spirit body, and was born because of Qin Wenyin. And now it would die because of Qin Wenyin. It had no regrets. This was its destiny. It's offering a sacrifice, summoning the spirit of the vermilion bird formation. Yun Mingyi softly spoke, her voice directly entering Qin Wentian's eardrums. The others couldn't hear it. So, Qin Wentian turned his gaze onto the purgatory vermilion bird. Momentarily, the purgatory vermilion bird also turned its gaze onto him, its eyes filled with reluctance yet determination. "I won't allow you to do this." Qin Wentian's heart was resolute. The purgatory vermilion bird seemed to be able to sense it. It let out a low cry of helplessness as it arched its body towards Qin Wenyin, as though it was filled with an intense longing for Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin turned his gaze onto Yun Mingyi. Yun Mingyi seemed to have understood Qin Wentian's intentions. She transmitted her voice over, "You can summon the divine steel. The divine steel also contains the power of an ancient will, and can be used to attack. However, I have no idea how much power the ancient will has left, and if you summon the divine steel, you would definitely offend many of the transcendent powers." There were still 5 pieces of the divine steel that were controlled by the 5 transcendent powers. If Qin Wenyin summoned it in front of everyone, how could he not offend them? Not only that, once the complete divine steel appeared, it wouldn't just be an offense. How could those transcendent powers not fight over it? Qin Wenyin slowly turned his gaze onto the purgatory vermilion bird, as a sharp glint of light flashed in his eyes. How could he watch on as his comrade sacrificed himself? The purgatory vermilion bird could sense the thoughts in Qin Wentian's heart. Do you know that summoning the spirit of the vermilion bird formation and activating the grand reactivation formation is extremely beneficial to you? Yun Mingyi spoke again, but Qin Wentian's heart didn't waver. "To me, you are not a spirit but a life form. You are my comrade." Qin Wenyin stared at the purgatory vermilion bird as he gently stroked its wings. "I won't allow you to sacrifice yourself." His gaze was incomparably resolute. Inclining his head, he stared at the golden-robed middle-aged man as he stated, "I don't believe you. I don't believe you." Qin Wentian's voice rang out, causing the countenances of the crowd to freeze. This Qin Wenyin was truly audacious. "Senior, are you really someone from the ancient kingdom? How can I prove it?" Qin Wenyin faintly asked. "Do I need to prove it?" The golden-robed middle-aged man coldly replied. "What if I can prove it?" Qin Wenyin stared at the golden-robed middle-aged man, causing his gaze to turn sharp as a wave of pressure bore down on him. It was as though he was gradually losing his patience. "How can you prove it?" Abruptly, a voice drifted over. Qin Wenyin discovered that the owner of this voice was none other than Old Man Tianji. The golden-robed middle-aged man turned his gaze onto Old Man Tianji, his eyes gleaming with sharpness. Old Man Tianji was also looking at the golden-robed middle-aged man. "What do you think?" That golden-robed middle-aged man fell silent for a moment before he turned to Qin Wenyin and coldly laughed. "I'll give you a chance to prove yourself." This place was the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. It wasn't his territory. Old man Tianji's strength was unfathomable. He would give him face. Qin Wendian stared at old man Tianji with gratitude in his eyes. He didn't expect that old man Tianji would actually speak out to help him. This was truly unexpected. Turning his gaze back to the skies, Qin Wendian's countenance was filled with determination. With an intention of his will, 4 heavenly steels appeared before him. The 3 heavenly steels from the ancient steel path, as well as the Yellow Springs monument. All 4 of them were part of the divine steel. The 4 heavenly steels floated in the air, causing the expressions of the crowd to freeze. This is... The golden-robed middle-aged man froze as he stared in bewilderment at the 4 heavenly steels. The divine steel. Old man Tianji's eyes gleamed with sharpness as he stared at Qin Wendian. This young man had actually obtained 4 divine steels, only to see Qin Wendian's lips trembling as he chanted an incantation. This incantation transformed into a formless energy that was infused into the heavenly steels. Instantly, the 4 heavenly steels began to hum unceasingly as they trembled violently, emitting terrifying whistling sounds. An intense ancient will gushed forth from the heavenly steels. Bzz. A resplendent light shot up into the skies, as the ancient will swept past the heavens and earth, penetrating through the void. What a powerful ancient will! The hearts of the crowd trembled. And at this moment, in the Venerate Heavens sect of Ginku, a heavenly steel suddenly trembled violently, emitting an intense humming sound as though the ancient will had awakened, summoning it. Boom! A deafening sound echoed out as the heavenly steel soared up into the skies, directly breaking out of the great hall. With a speed so fast that the naked eye couldn't detect it, it sped towards a certain direction. What's that? Those from the Venerate Heavens sect all inclined their heads, staring at a beam of light in the skies. They couldn't even see what it was, yet it had already flown away. It was too fast, so fast that it caused their hearts to tremble. Similar scenes occurred in the great Solar Qin clan and Shi clan. Among them, a heavenly steel soared through the skies, transforming into a beam of light. Not only that, in the Moon Continent, the Pill Emperor Hall and the Hua clan, a heavenly steel soared through the skies as well. They only saw a beam of light shooting up into the skies. In the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, countless people stared at the heavenly steel floating above Qin Wendian. The eyes of the golden-robed middle-aged man gleamed with a terrifying light. He didn't stop Qin Wendian. This was the awakening of the ancient will of the divine steel. Truly a gift bestowed by the heavens. The eyes of the golden-robed middle-aged man gleamed with sharpness. If the divine steel appeared again, he would take it away with him. Bzzz, bzzz, bzzz. 3 beams of light arrived almost instantaneously, directly fusing together with the 4 heavenly steels. A sharp whistling sound rang out in the air, terrifying to the extreme, as the ancient will of the heavens and earth permeated the air. That's the heavenly steel from the Venerate Heavens sect. They're fusing together. Old man Tianji exclaimed in shock. Indeed, they were fusing together. Was this really the will of the heavens? Not too long after, another 2 beams of light flew over, instantly landing on the fused heavenly steel. An incomparably dazzling light radiated forth, causing the entire arena platform to tremble. How fast? Although those from the transcendent powers knew what was going to happen, they were all stunned by the speed at which the heavenly steels arrived. The fate of the constellations of Grand Xia is indeed fusing together. The divine steel is fusing together first. In the future, this young man will definitely influence the entire Grand Xia. The last shred of doubt in old man Tianji's heart vanished without a trace. Without a doubt, Qin Wendian was that demonic star. He was the one who caused the 9 heavenly steel fragments to fuse together and reform. Back then, when the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia was destroyed, the divine steel was split into 9 pieces. Today, it was fusing together. Wasn't this a kind of omen, a sign of the will of the heavens? Qin Wendian only felt a terrifying ancient will emanating from the divine steel floating in the air, exuding an immense pressure that made it hard for them to breathe. The 9 shattered pieces of the divine steel glowed with a bright light as they gradually merged back together. The divine steel had reappeared in Grand Xia. Chapter 394. Bang! A thunderous sound rang out as the divine steel slammed into the ground. Brilliant light circulated around it, as though it could split the divine steel into 9 different parts. Each of the 9 divine steel glowed with a different light, and the ancient will within each one was different as well. Since Senior is someone from the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, why is the divine steel in my hands? Could it be that Senior doesn't know the chant to summon the divine steel? Qin Wenin inclined his head, staring at the golden-robed middle-aged man in the air as he coldly spoke. However, the golden-robed middle-aged man merely laughed coldly as he took a step forward. Instantly, Qin Wenin groaned in agony as though that foot had directly stomped on his heart. Boom! In the air, the golden-robed middle-aged man took another step forward. Not only Qin Wenin, but everyone else on the arena platform all coughed out mouthfuls of blood as their countenances paled. The disparity in their strength was too great, they weren't even on the same level. How dare you steal my divine steel? The golden-robed middle-aged man coldly spoke. With a grab, a gigantic astral palm imprint manifested, directly grabbing towards the divine steel. The divine steel shone with astral light, blinding the eyes of the spectators. Abruptly, the divine steel vanished from sight, reappearing in front of the golden-robed middle-aged man as a beam of sword light slashed down from the skies. That beam of sword light directly traversed the heavens and earth, exuding an incomparably terrifying might. Stellar transposition, heavenly swordplay. The spectators all had looks of shock on their faces. The divine steel was actually able to unleash the ultimate arts of Grand Xia. A drop of fresh blood appeared on the divine steel. The divine steel wept tears of blood, exuding an overwhelming might that could destroy the heavens and earth. The golden-robed middle-aged man froze, his countenance incomparably sharp as he coldly spoke. The ancient will from thousands of years ago still hasn't been extinguished. Do you still want to overturn the heavens? After speaking, the golden-robed middle-aged man blasted out with a palm strike, as though a paragon of the great sun had appeared. Pucci! The sword sliced through the air as the palm imprint shattered. The golden-robed middle-aged man retreated, only to see the divine steel emitting a shrill howl as a blood-red palm imprint shot forth from all directions. The countenances of the experts from the divine steel drastically changed as they hurriedly retreated, unleashing a terrifying aura. The blood-colored ancient imprint descended from the sky, and it was as if drops of blood were dripping onto some people's bodies. Some people couldn't dodge in time and were struck by the blood imprint. In an instant, their flesh and blood were corroded at a terrifying speed. In a short moment, the blood imprint streaked past their bones, and their vitality was gone. The tyrannical power caused people's hearts to tremble. Blood Curse Seal, one of the 9 great supreme skills. What a powerful ancient will. The ancient will of the divine steel seems to contain a torrential resentment. The spectators felt their hearts pounding violently. However, there were also quite a few tyrannical experts among them. They took out their divine weapons, and abruptly, a gigantic ancient steel appeared in the air. Boundless scriptures gushed forth from the ancient steel, transforming into a terrifying sealing energy that wanted to seal the divine steel within. The divine steel frenziedly shuddered as lightning flashed in the air. A thunder god's slash descended from the heavens, instantly cleaving one of the experts into 2. The divine steel then shot towards the opening. The golden-robed middle-aged man howled in rage. Abruptly, a gigantic sword materialized in his body, circulating with boundless astral light. Bzz. The gigantic sword stood tall in the air, guarding the opening. The divine steel was unable to escape, and it could only continue its frenzied attacks. Capture them, I want them alive. The golden-robed middle-aged man coldly commanded. As he dealt with the divine steel, he swept his gaze onto the experts from the other powers in the corridor. Old Man Tianji furrowed his brows, only to see the experts from the great Solar Chen clan stepping out. He's the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings. It doesn't seem appropriate for all of you to act now. Old man Tianji slowly spoke as though intending to stop them. Senior is too polite. Although this brat is the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings, his character isn't good. He even stole the divine steel of my great Solar Chin clan. With such a personality, we should capture him and interrogate him properly. An expert from the great Solar Chin clan spoke. After which, he turned his gaze onto the others. What do you all think? My Hua clan's divine steel was also stolen. We will naturally interrogate him. An expert from the Hua clan coldly spoke as he stepped out, expressing his stance. After this matter is concluded, I can return the steel to all of you. Qin Wenin stared at the experts in the corridor, his countenance gleaming with a cold light. Since you've chosen to be a thief, there's no turning back. Your personality will only bring disaster to Grand Xia. You should be eliminated as soon as possible. A cold voice drifted into Qin Wentian's ears. The person who spoke was none other than someone from the Wang clan. Qin Wentian's talent was outstanding, and he had offended too many people. All of them already had their own plans in their hearts, and even if the golden-robed middle-aged man wasn't present, they would still act against Qin Wentian in secret. Now that they had an excuse to act, how could they allow Qin Wentian to leave the ancient kingdom unscathed? Leaving aside Qin Wentian, Mu Feng, Qin Zheng and the rest were all characters ranked at the top of the heavenly fate rankings. In the future, if they could hand them over to the golden-robed middle-aged man, they would definitely search their souls before killing them. What a bunch of experts from Grand Xia. It seems like you can't bear to see someone else obtaining the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings. Ouyang Guangsheng coldly laughed. Qin Wentian stealing their steel was merely an excuse. Seems like the power of the ancient will is already extremely weak. Yun Mingyi stared at the divine steel, feeling a sense of loss. The divine steel of Grand Xia was actually obstructed by a bunch of heavenly dipper sovereigns? Qin Wentian's eyes flickered as he spoke. All of you leave. This matter had arisen because of him. These people were all targeting him. Since we're already standing here, we have no plans to leave. Ouyang Guangsheng swept his gaze over to the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Guangsheng, come back. Ouyang Guangsheng's uncle called out, only to see Ouyang Guangsheng lightly shaking his head. His uncle then turned to the others. Everyone, please don't harm my nephew. My disciple is there as well, Bai Qing's master from the Mystic Moon sect stated. At this moment, those who wanted to deal with Qin Wentian were all from the 7 great clans. They had no way to stop them. After all, it was impossible for them to start a war against the 7 great clans for the sake of a junior. Bailu Yi leave. Qin Wentian didn't want to implicate the others. He glanced at Bailu Jing and Bailu Yi, only to see Bailu Jing and Bailu Yi shaking her head. Who? Qin Wentian's heart trembled. His eyes flickered with a terrifying coldness as he stared at the approaching silhouettes. If I leave, all of you leave immediately. Qin Wentian spoke to the crowd. After which, a demonic light flickered in his eyes. He walked out, facing the crowd as he let out a low roar. Instantly, this low roar resonated with the heavens and earth as a surge of energy descended from the heavens. Rumble. The entire space suddenly trembled as demonic qi howled in rage, gushing towards Qin Wentian. A fearsome demonic wind ravaged the entire space, ravaging everything in its path. Roar of the demonic divinity, ancient will transcending the heavens. A fearsome demonic light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. He inclined his head and stared at the heavens, his will connecting the heavens and earth. Demonic qi from all 8 directions converged towards him, causing the spectators to shiver uncontrollably. What kind of power was this? What's going on? On the arena platform, a terrifying demonic wind gusted forth, causing the robes of Ouyang Guangsheng and the rest to flutter in the wind. Their eyes couldn't even open as they stared at Qin Wentian. How could this be? What kind of power was Qin Wentian using? A long cry rang out as the heavens and earth trembled. The silhouette of a terrifying vermilion bird appeared on the arena platform, incomparably resplendent. The entire space seemed to have transformed into a world of purgatory. This Inclining their heads, the spectators saw the purgatory vermilion bird floating in the air. Its body was actually ablaze, and an incomparably gigantic silhouette of a vermilion bird appeared in the air, causing the entire space to tremble violently. "Do it!" The spectators instantly transformed into streaks of light as they rushed towards Qin Wenyan and the rest. However, a terrifying cry rang out as the gigantic vermilion bird formation's spirit reappeared once again, staring down at the crowd with disdain. Bang! A terrifying hurricane slammed into Qin Wenyan, causing him to groan in misery as he was flung through the air. The demonic divinity sacrificial transformation art was interrupted. Inclining his head, he stared at the purgatory vermilion bird in the air. "I can transform into a demon, why must you do this? You don't wish to become a demon." A voice rang out in the depths of Qin Wentian's heart. At this moment, he could actually hear the purgatory vermilion bird's voice. Qin Wenyan saw tears in the eyes of the purgatory vermilion bird, filled with unwillingness. It was no longer an astral body, it was a living being. A terrifying palm imprint slashed out, directly aiming for Qin Wenyan. The purgatory vermilion bird's silhouette flickered, directly appearing in front of Qin Wenyan. With a thunderous boom, the purgatory vermilion bird was forced back as it coughed out fresh blood. However, its body was still burning as the purgatory vermilion bird grew larger and larger. "You're courting death." The palm imprint of the Chen clan's expert seemed to contain the might of the great sun as it bore down from the heavens. Terrifying rumbling sounds filled the air as it bore down on Qin Wenyan. The purgatory vermilion bird howled in rage as it rushed out. Rumble, the illusory body of the purgatory vermilion bird felt as though it was on the verge of collapse. However, it had no fear at all. With a mournful wail, the purgatory vermilion bird turned its head and cast a deep glance at Qin Wenyan, as though it was filled with love and longing. A bright light flashed as the purgatory vermilion bird transformed into a beam of light, directly shooting into the skies, merging with the vermilion bird's spirit. In an instant, boundless astral light flashed as the entire sky transformed into a dimension of purgatory. The purgatory constellation appeared as terrifying purgatory flames roared in the air. This entire space was plunged into darkness. What's going on? At this instant, everyone inclined their heads and stared at the skies. Over there, a gigantic vermilion bird's spirit opened its eyes, blotting out the sun. The entire space trembled violently as this place was once again transformed into an ancient formation. Purgatory! Qin Wenyan stared at the skies as his heart trembled. Staring at the gigantic vermilion bird, there was only sorrow in his heart. He didn't even treat the purgatory vermilion bird as a spiritual body, but as a companion instead. That final glance it cast at him caused his heart to shatter. Because he didn't want to become a demon, the purgatory vermilion bird chose to sacrifice itself. At this moment, the gigantic vermilion bird swept its gaze over the arena platform, its cold eyes devoid of any emotions. Streams of purgatory flames descended from the skies, shooting towards the expert from the Chen clan. That expert's silhouette flickered as he fled for his life, only to see the boundless purgatory flames enveloping him as they transformed into a purgatory lotus. A miserable scream rang out as that powerful heavenly dipper sovereign from the great solar Chen clan was turned into dust by the purgatory lotus. Chapter 395. Purgatory. At this moment, this entire space had transformed into a true purgatory dimension. Qin Wenyan inclined his head and stared at the gigantic vermilion bird, summoning the purgatory constellation. This was the symbol of a celestial phenomenon ascendant. Within the constellation, the purgatory constellation was akin to hell on earth. "Are you still there?" Qin Wentian's body slowly soared up into the air. Traces of blood could be seen at the corners of his mouth as he soared through the air. In this space, screams of agony rang out as people were incinerated into ashes by the purgatory flames. The spectators from afar all had expressions of terror on their faces. They had never imagined that such a terrifying situation would occur. Under the might of this constellation, The legs of many turned soft, and they didn't even have the courage to flee. Even if they tried to flee, the vermilion bird would be able to annihilate them with a single thought. Wenti engage. Bai Qing had an expression of worry on her face when she saw Qin Wenyin soaring up into the air. Was this purgatory vermilion bird still the same purgatory vermilion bird? Qin Wenyin actually appeared beside the gigantic face of the vermilion bird. As long as the vermilion bird willed it, he would definitely die. Qin Wenyin stretched out his hands, slowly moving towards the face of the vermilion bird. The eyes of the vermilion bird were ice-cold as it stared at him, causing the spectators on the platform to feel a sense of nervousness in their hearts. Their palms were instantly drenched in sweat. "I don't believe that you will vanish just like that." Qin Wenyin stared into the eyes of the vermilion bird as he placed his hands on the face of the purgatory vermilion bird, gently caressing it. Bzz. A raging wind gusted by as the vermilion bird let out a shrill cry. The purgatory flames crazily descended from the skies. The vermilion bird seemed to be extremely violent as it stared at Qin Wenyin. "Wenyin, come back." The countenances of Fan Lu and the rest stiffened. All of them were incomparably nervous. This fellow was too impulsive. Qin Wenyin acted as though he hadn't heard anything. His eyes were filled with determination as he stared at the vermilion bird. Gradually, the eyes of the vermilion bird glowed with a hint of warmth. After that, the vermilion bird stretched out its gigantic head and leaned on Qin Wentian's palm, allowing Qin Wentian's palm to caress it. Upon seeing this scene, the spectators on the arena platform finally heaved a sigh of relief. Their robes were drenched in cold sweat, and it was evident that they had been badly frightened. Qin Wenyin was too impulsive. "I know you're still here. Although you're a formation spirit, I'll definitely find a way to take you away." Qin Wenyin said softly. He hated himself a little. If it weren't for the fact that he wasn't strong enough, he wouldn't have needed to rely on the purgatory vermilion bird to help him out of danger. The spirit of the vermilion bird matrix let out a low cry and glanced at the void. Qin Wenyin also looked at those figures and said coldly, "Those who attacked us just now, kill them." "Qin Wenyin, you dare?" A thunderous voice thundered out, filled with a terrifying killing intent. "Kill us all. Do you still think there's a path of survival for you in Grand Xia?" The threat in their voices rang out unceasingly, but as the sound of their voices faded, the purgatory astral light shone on that person. Instantly, that person screamed in agony as he vanished into the flames of purgatory. Qin Wenyin turned around, his eyes filled with an incomparably intense killing intent. "Regardless of whether I can survive or not, at the very least, all of you will have to die." Qin Wentian's voice was ice-cold. These people already had killing intent towards him. They didn't want him to leave the ancient kingdom alive. His personality was decisive, and he showed no mercy to his enemies. Since he wanted to become his enemy, he would sever all thoughts of revenge. Those experts all fled for their lives, yet the spirit of the vermilion bird matrix was still staring at those who acted against Qin Wenyin. The Chen clan, Hua clan, and Wang clan suffered the most casualties, with people dying one after another. The countenance of the golden-robed middle-aged man was incredibly unsightly to behold. The purgatory flames continued to rain down on them, and many of them died as well. At this moment, he took out an ancient scroll that contained boundless spatial energy. It was a supreme treasure for him to use for escaping. With a wave of his hand, the ancient scroll shone with a terrifying light as the spatial energy enveloped all of them. When the purgatory flames gushed over, the ancient scroll abruptly burst forth with an intense spatial light, causing all of those experts to vanish from sight. In the air, the ancient scroll was set ablaze. Such a supreme treasure could only be used once. Many experts from the major powers fled madly for their lives. Those spectators also didn't dare to stay here any longer, and all of them fled as well. The entire space transformed into a scene of purgatory on Earth, with experts dying unceasingly. At this moment, on the ground below, a figure wanted to flee. However, Qin Wenyin abruptly turned around, staring at that person as he coldly spoke, "Di Feng, stay behind." That person's face wasn't that of Emperor Azure. Instead, it was that of a pale-faced young man, looking extremely ordinary and unremarkable. That person turned his head and stared at Qin Wenyin. "Sir, are you talking to me? If you directly left, I might not have obstructed you. But since you were afraid that I would kill you, you actually changed your face in the midst of the chaos. In that case, you will die today for sure." Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with sharpness. Earlier, when the purgatory flames enveloped the entire space, Di Feng actually changed his face and wanted to sneak away. If it wasn't for Qin Wentian's terrifying perception, he definitely wouldn't have noticed Di Feng. Who would have thought that Di Feng's cleverness had led him astray? "Since you can change your appearance, there's no doubt that you were the one who impersonated me to deal with Mu Feng back then." Qin Wentian's countenance was ice-cold, as an intense killing intent flickered in his eyes. Di Feng wanted to feign ignorance, but Qin Wentian ignored him. "You said it was him?" Not far away, Mu Feng's eyes flickered with a cold light as he stared at Di Feng. "We've only met once and you already want me dead so badly? To think that you would use such a method to borrow Mu Feng's hand to kill me?" Qin Wentian stepped out as his aura gushed forth, causing a terrifying coldness to envelop the Emperor's wind. Di Feng knew that Qin Wentian had already recognized him, and there was no point in pretending anymore. His countenance turned ashen as he used a secret art to change his appearance. Moments later, his countenance contorted and contorted, revealing that he was none other than Di Feng. "Although we have a grudge between us, we are still of the same bloodline. Since you've proven yourself in the heavenly fate rankings, I'll naturally assist you in accomplishing great things." Di Feng slowly spoke, neither servile nor overbearing. One couldn't help but admit that this person's schemes were extremely deep and terrifying. However, the killing intent in Qin Wentian's eyes didn't diminish in the slightest. He coldly stated, "You are not worthy." Di Feng's countenance turned unsightly as he stated, "If you kill me, you will definitely form a grudge with my bloodline. If that's the case, I'll clean up the clan myself." Qin Wentian's countenance was as sharp as ever, causing Di Feng's countenance to turn even darker. Beside him, Mu Feng walked over, the poison qi radiating from him terrifying to the extreme. Di Feng retreated as he stared at Mu Feng. "I don't know what you two are talking about, and when did I form a grudge with you? If I wanted to kill Qin Wentian, I would have done it myself. Why would I need to borrow your hand?" Even now, Di Feng still refused to admit it. A raging wind gusted by. Qin Wentian's silhouette vanished from his original location, appearing in front of Di Feng in an instant. With a palm strike, the dragon imprint blasted out with lightning speed. Di Feng hurriedly lifted his palms to defend, only to be flung through the air with a thunderous boom. Qin Wentian's silhouette was like a bolt of lightning, chasing after Di Feng. The heartbreak ancient bell blasted out in a frenzy, causing Di Feng's heart to palpitate. He felt as though his heart was about to explode as he coughed out fresh blood. It was impossible for him to withstand the full force of Qin Wentian's attack. Mu Feng's poison palm imprint slammed into Di Feng's chest. Instantly, a terrifying poison qi gushed into Di Feng's body. Di Feng's countenance turned black as he stared at Qin Wentian with a venomous look on his face. "Your little sister tastes pretty good." Di Feng stared at Mu Feng as he laughed evilly. His words caused Mu Feng's countenance to turn pale. He sliced open his finger, and a black streak of light landed on Di Feng's body. In an instant, Di Feng's body actually began to shrivel up as his blood transformed into black qi. Arg. Di Feng screamed miserably as his blood was corroded bit by bit. In the end, his entire body shriveled up, turning into a pile of bones. Mu Feng's eyes were bloodshot as he continued to stare at the gigantic skeleton. Qin Wentian glanced at the interspatial ring beside Di Feng. With a wave of his hand, the interspatial ring flew into his palm. This Di Feng was a descendant of the Di clan. Qin Wentian didn't know if there were any useful treasures in his interspatial ring. Mu Feng turned his head, staring at Qin Wentian as he spoke. "I misunderstood you in the past, and now you've saved me once again. Not only that, you've helped me find my enemy. From now on, I will follow you until the transcendent powers of Grand Xia are no longer a threat to you. I will only leave then. A strange expression appeared on Qin Wentian's face as he stared at Mu Feng. You don't have to do this. I know my current strength is useless against those transcendent powers. But in the future, you will have to look for me, Mu Feng calmly replied as he turned around, walking towards the direction of the Vermilion Bird Arena platform. Although Mu Feng's temperament had undergone a drastic change, he was still filled with confidence in his own future. And because of today's promise, in the future, the new Poison King, Mu Feng, would become the most terrifying character by Qin Wentian's side. Qin Wentian turned his head to look at Mu Feng, but didn't say anything. Today's matter, he did it for himself, it had nothing to do with Mu Feng. But since Mu Feng was insistent on it, he wouldn't change his mind just because of his words. At this moment, in the vast space, there weren't many people left. There were those who had died and those who had fled. A terrifying energy frenziedly permeated the area, enveloping the entire royal palace. This was the Purgatory Grand Formation, and from now on, it had become a forbidden ground. Qin Wentian returned to the Vermilion Bird Arena platform. Staring at the group of silhouettes, a bitter smile appeared on his face as he spoke. Now, even if I wanted to leave, it would be too difficult. The spirit of the Vermilion Bird Formation had slaughtered so many people in the Ginku continent. Those transcendent powers would soon arrive and surround the royal palace. Stretching out his hands, a raging wind gusted as the divine steel flew back to him. Qin Wentian's will entered the divine steel, and in an instant he sensed the innate techniques within. An instant later, Qin Wentian sensed the 9 ultimate arts. Turning his head, a smile appeared on his face as he stared at the crowd. Come and choose the ultimate arts of Grand Xia that are most suitable for you all. The countenances of the crowd stiffened, only to hear Ouyang Guangxing laughing uproariously. Seems like there are benefits to being trapped here. To be able to cultivate the ultimate arts of Grand Xia, why not? Since this is the case, I don't mind staying here for a year or so. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled as he shook his head. Was being ranked first on the heavenly fate rankings a blessing or a calamity? But the past had already passed, he could only strive for the present and gaze into the future. Even if he had to become enemies with Grand Xia, he would still carve out a path for himself. Chapter 396. The 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia were Great Solar Universe Art, Chaotic Art of the Heavenly Devil, Heavenly Swordplay, Golden Dragon Battle Art, Stellar Transposition, Formless Heart Sutra, Seal of Life and Death, Blood Curse Imprint, Thunder God Slash. Of the 9 ultimate arts, Stellar Transposition and Formless Heart Sutra belonged to the category of ultimate arts that could be cultivated by anyone. As for the other 7, the Great Solar Universe Art was best suited for those who were proficient in fire. Bai Qing had already cultivated the Chaotic Art of the Heavenly Devil. This cultivation art was extremely tyrannical, and the slightest mistake would result in death. The Heavenly Swordplay was best suited for those who were proficient in swordsmanship. The Golden Dragon Battle Art was best suited for those who were proficient in metal-attributed energy. The Seal of Life and Death was extremely tyrannical, and only those who were proficient in life and death energy would be able to successfully cultivate it. The Blood Curse Imprint was similarly tyrannical, and it was one of the 9 ultimate arts that could be cultivated together with the Seal of Life and Death. Among those present, only Mu Feng was able to cultivate it. The Thunder God Slash was one of the most tyrannical single-target attacks, but its consumption rate was extremely high. It gathered the terrifying energy of lightning and frenziedly compressed it, compressing it to the point where it could erupt at any moment. After which, it transformed into a saber light and slashed out, shocking the Thunder God. The Divine Steel has the ability to examine the heavens. Get the others to step forward and activate the will of the Divine Steel. Yun Mingyi spoke, her words causing Qin Wentian's expression to stiffen. This Divine Steel was actually so heaven-defying? The Divine Steel can see one's heart. Yun Mingyi seemed to have an extremely deep understanding of the Divine Steel. Qin Wentian glanced at her before stepping forward, walking towards the complete divine steel for the first time. The divine steel glowed with a brilliant light, instantly enveloping Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin only felt himself appearing in a void. Groaning in misery, he felt a boundless force slamming into his body. Not only his body, but his spirit, will, and even his heart were being attacked. He felt as though he could die at any moment. Buzz! Abruptly, a terrifying heat descended upon Qin Wenyin. In this space of nothingness, Qin Wentian's entire body was bathed in flames, resembling the king of Chen Wenyin. His body was like a sovereign of flames. The terrifying heat scorched his body. However, Qin Wenyin was still as calm as ever. The flames couldn't burn him. In the next moment, the flames disappeared, and an incomparably tyrannical demonic energy rushed into his body. Thunder rumbled, and demonic might crushed everything, transforming into a terrifying and tyrannical demonic energy that rampaged through his body. Qin Wenyin felt that his body was about to explode. This demonic might was extremely violent, and he couldn't bear it. His eyes were filled with demonic will, and it was as though he was about to fall into a state of slaughter. Is this the chaotic heavenly demon skill? Qin Wenyin had an illusion. It was as though he was experiencing the power of the chaotic heavenly demon art. That last by Qing had cultivated such a tyrannical art. How much pain and suffering did she have to endure? How many trials and tribulations did she experience? Numerous types of energy manifested on Qin Wentian's body. Finally, in front of Qin Wenyin, 9 illusory scenes floated. Each scene seemed to contain a different innate technique, each containing terrifying might. They were all imprinted in his mind. Finally, a powerful surge of energy forced him backwards. Qin Wenyin drew in a deep breath. His entire body was drenched in sweat. Yun Mingyi turned her gaze onto him as she asked, "Which secret arts did you see in there?" 9. Qin Wenyin replied. Yun Mingyi's beautiful eyes flashed. "You have a connection with the divine steel. You should be able to sense the 9 secret arts. What I'm asking is, how many did you personally see in there?" 9. Qin Wenyin replied. "Is there a problem?" "Monster." Yun Mingyi froze for a moment before finally accepting the truth. "You can cultivate all 9 of the secret arts. However, this only means that you have the talent to control them. They might not be suitable for you. For example, if you don't cultivate the mandate of life and death, you won't be able to cultivate the seal of life and death. The divine steel didn't reject you because you can cultivate the mandate of life and death in the future." Qin Wenyin pondered for a moment before understanding Yun Mingyi's meaning. He nodded his head. "Take a look at the secret arts you are proficient in and choose the one that is most suitable for you." "Let me try first." Fan Lu stepped forward, facing the divine steel. Similar to Qin Wenyin, he was brought into the illusory space by the divine steel. Not long after, Fan Lu opened his eyes, gleaming with sharpness. "I'm preparing to cultivate the great solar universe art. Stellar transposition is more suitable for me. Ancient, your flames aren't any weaker than Chen Wang's. If you succeed in cultivating the great solar universe art, your achievements would definitely be higher than his." Qin Wenyin nodded. Chu Mang stepped forward, using the divine steel to test himself. There were many secret arts that were suitable for him, but his initial choices were Golden Dragon Battle Art, Stellar Transposition, and Thunder God Slash. Stellar Transposition was suitable for anyone, as it could be used to obtain victory at crucial moments. No one would be stingy with their time, but the amount of time they spent, as well as their talent, would determine how proficient they were in the Stellar Transposition. Ouyang Guangxing's initial choice was the same as Chu Mang's, Thunder God Slash, Stellar Transposition. Ouyang Guangxing was proficient in lightning and would be more suitable for the Thunder God Slash. Yun Mingyi was clear in her heart. Mu Feng chose Stellar Transposition and the Blood Curse imprint. Among these people, Mu Feng was undoubtedly the most suitable to cultivate the Blood Curse imprint. He was proficient in the mandate of blood and mandate of poison. Everyone had their own choices, even Teacher Mustang and Senior Sister Luo Huan. Qin Wenyin also allowed them to choose if there were any secret arts that were suitable for them. Although Mustang's talent was limited, he could still grow stronger by cultivating the secret arts. After everything was concluded, Qin Wenin inclined his head and stared at the skies. Stepping out, he once again stood in front of the gigantic vermilion bird formation spirit as he stared at its face. Purgatory, is it unable to return? Qin Wenin felt a sense of melancholy in his heart. He missed his comrade who had sacrificed himself for him. It was originally a sentient life form, but it had sacrificed itself to summon the formation spirit. Now, it had become a part of the formation spirit. It won't be able to return. It was originally born because of the formation spirit. After summoning it, the Grand Xia Royal Palace transformed into a purgatory grand formation. For you, it chose to protect this place. Right now, the transcendent powers are no longer the 9 grand clans of the past. Even if the great Solar Qin clan invited their strongest experts, they wouldn't dare to enter the purgatory grand formation so easily. Yun Mingyi spoke. An expression of sadness flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. Was it unable to return after transforming into a formation spirit? It would forever protect the Grand Xia Royal Palace, and at the same time, protect him. At this moment, the vermilion bird formation spirit inclined its head as it let out a terrifying screech. The flames of purgatory engulfed every corner of the formation, and deep emotions could be seen in its eyes. Although it was only a part of the formation spirit, it was still able to affect it. From this, one could see how deep the feelings it had for Qin Wenin. This caused Qin Wenin to feel even more guilt, as though he had let down his comrade. Right now, we should be trapped here, right? Qin Wentian spoke to Yun Mingyi. I think so. This time around, you have completely angered several transcendent powers. Yun Mingyi nodded. Even if I didn't anger them, they wouldn't allow me to live. Since this is the case, if I want to live, they want to die, Qin Wentian calmly spoke. After which, he stepped out, moving towards the Grand Xia Royal Palace. The flames of purgatory had killed many powerful characters, and in this space, there were many interspatial rings left behind. Now that Qin Wentian had mastered the ultimate arts of Grand Xia, although he didn't hope to obtain any powerful innate techniques, he still needed Yuan meteor stones to cultivate. Everyone here needed Yuan meteor stones. Right now, the majority of them were all waiting to break through to Heavenly Dipper. Qin Wentian's temperament was getting more and more decisive compared to the past. Knowing that he was trapped here, he didn't think about anything else. First, he had to cultivate, hoping to break through to Heavenly Dipper as soon as possible. Only the strongest powers would be the foundation. After finding some interspatial rings, Qin Wentian discovered that there was indeed a large amount of Yuan meteor stones within them. He immediately distributed the Yuan meteor stones to the rest so that they could cultivate together, and within the protective formation of the vermilion bird formation, he began his cultivation. Outside of the Grand Xia Royal Palace, there was still a sea of people. They stared at the ancient royal palace that had been transformed into a purgatory, with an indescribable feeling in their hearts. Qin Wenin had obtained the top ranker on the heavenly fate rankings, yet he had become the target of public criticism. Many wanted to kill him, but his vermilion bird had actually summoned a terrifying formation spirit, capable of destroying everything. Only now did everyone understand why Qin Wenin, who was the first to step into the purgatory vermilion bird, kept on devouring ancient luck. Most probably, it was to form a powerful astral body and summon the formation spirit. Old man Tianji floated in the air. He didn't make a move against Qin Wenin. Since the formation spirit didn't target him, he easily walked out. At this moment, he stared at the purgatory vermilion bird. His eyes gleamed with sharpness. He didn't expect things to turn out this way. The heavenly steel had been gathered. The divine steel had reappeared in Grand Xia. Now that the grand formation had been summoned, would those who remained behind in the formation be able to change Grand Xia? I can't wait for that day to come. Old man Tianji silently mused, after which he turned and departed. Not long after, many experts arrived. Naturally, the Qin clan and the other powers that had a grudge with Qin Wentian arrived. They directly surrounded the Grand Xia Royal Palace, forming a protective perimeter around it. the Qin clan had suffered the most casualties. 7 to 8 Heavenly Dipper sovereigns had died, and only after risking their lives did they manage to save Qin Wang. The eyes of these people were incomparably cold as they stared at the ancient formation, their killing intent towering up to the heavens. Initially, they had thought that with so many experts present, they would be able to crush Qin Wenyan like squashing an ant. No matter how talented he was, if he couldn't mature, he couldn't be called a genius. But what happened next was something no one could have predicted. Those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Mystic Moon sect were present as well. Ouyang Guangxing and Bai Qing were still inside, walking together with Qin Wenyan. They didn't know if this was a blessing or a calamity. Those from the 9 mystical palace were extremely depressed as well. This time around, they had sent out several Heavenly Dipper sovereigns to hunt down Qin Wenyan. Initially, they thought that as long as Qin Wenyan appeared, there would be no way for him to escape. But who would have thought that Qin Wenyan would be able to stir up such a terrifying storm? After Qin Wentian's actions, the power structure of the entire Grand Xia seemed to have changed. It was very chaotic, extremely chaotic. It was as though the thousands of years of peace in Grand Xia was about to be broken. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed by. During these 3 months, the news of what happened in ancient Grand Xia spread throughout Grand Xia. Qin Wentian's name resounded throughout the 9 continents of Grand Xia, and for a period of time, there was no one who didn't know of him. But now, it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. He was trapped within the royal palace, and his life could be in danger at any moment. During these 3 months, not a single one of those experts from the royal palace walked out. It was as though they had vanished without a trace. They knew that Qin Wenyan and the others were hiding inside, not daring to come out. Chapter 397. 3 months, to Qin Wenyan, was merely a short nap. During the ranking battle, he broke through to the 9th level of Yuanfu, and after numerous battles, his foundation was stabilized. And now, after another 3 months of consolidation, the 3 Yuanfu within Qin Wentian's body were filled to the brim with astral energy, akin to a pool of water. Qin Wentian lay on the arena platform, peacefully sleeping. Above him, the purgatory vermilion bird formation's spirit cascaded downwards, cascading down on him. In the air, Little Rascal was there as well. Its body shimmered with a golden light, and its lips moved unceasingly, as though it was munching on something. After it was full, it would return to the arena platform and lie down beside Qin Wenyan, quietly accompanying him in a nap. It was an exceptionally peaceful and tranquil scene. The royal palace of Grand Xia was extremely vast, and although there were flames of hell everywhere, it wasn't difficult to find a place to rest. Other than Qin Wenyan, the others were all in closed-door seclusion. The 9th level of Yuanfu was a critical juncture for every cultivator. At this moment, Qin Wentian's body twitched as he stretched lazily. Opening his eyes, he stared at the spirit of the vermilion bird formation in the air as a hint of gentleness flashed in his eyes. Little Rascal. After mumbling in a low voice, Little Rascal climbed up and leaped into Qin Wentian's embrace. Qin Wentian hugged it as he rubbed its fluffy white fur. He smiled, "Don't ever leave me again." "Yaya." Little Rascal unceasingly shook its head, causing a gentle smile to appear on Qin Wentian's face. Sitting up, Qin Wentian felt that his body was in excellent condition. This nap was simply too comfortable. "Wenyan Gidge, you're awake." A melodious voice drifted over. Qin Wenyan turned his gaze over as he smiled at the beautiful silhouette walking over. How's your cultivation recently?" Qin Wenyan asked. "Excellent, my mandate of saber has finally broken through to the 2nd level. I'm preparing to condense my astral nova and attempt to break through to the Heavenly Dipper realm." Bai Qing sat down and laid beside Qin Wenyan. She was akin to a mermaid, her posture exceptionally alluring. When she was young, she loved to lie down and chat with her Wenyan Gidge. At that time, she was innocent and carefree. She didn't have any worries at all. "Are there enough Yuan meteor stones?" Qin Wenyan asked. Wanting to break through to the Heavenly Dipper realm wasn't an easy task. It required a long period of preparation, as well as sufficient yuan meteor stones to condense an astral nova. Not only that, the prerequisite for breaking through to the heavenly Dipper realm was that the will of one's mandate of Daos had to be at the second level as well as one's state of heart. Not a single one of these conditions could be lacking. However, for the top rankers of the heavenly fate rankings this time around, they had all survived countless battles of life and death. Not only that, all of them had comprehended the second level of mandates. As long as their cultivation base reached the same level, with sufficient resources and proper preparation, they should be able to succeed. This was also the reason why since ancient times, demon-level geniuses of Grand Xia had always wanted to participate in the heavenly fate rankings. Fighting against geniuses, the tempering of one's heart and tempering one's will would allow one to break through to the heavenly Dipper realm, stabilizing one's cultivation base, strengthening one's will, and strengthening one's mental fortitude. After ranking on the heavenly fate rankings, the success rate of breaking through to the heavenly Dipper realm was extremely high. That's enough. Didn't we already find a lot of yuan meteor stones? Bai Qing smiled. I wonder if I should first condense a single astral nova, or directly condense 3 astral novas? Since you've already comprehended the second level of mandates, you should naturally condense 3 astral novas. This way, when you break through to the heavenly Dipper realm, your combat prowess would be at an advantage. Qin Wendian laughed. That's what I'm thinking as well. However, the difficulty is still the same. I wonder if the astral novas I condense will be powerful or not. Bai Qing's eyelashes fluttered as her beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wenyin. Wenyin Gij, when are you preparing to break through to the heavenly Dipper realm? Your astral souls are so powerful, your astral novas would surely be stronger compared to others. However, the amount of energy required to condense my astral nova is also extremely high. Qin Wendian laughed. The more powerful one's astral soul was, the more terrifying the energy contained within the astral nova would be. If an astral nova formed from an astral soul from the 5th heavenly layer collided with an astral nova formed from an astral soul from the 1st heavenly layer, under the circumstances that both parties were at the same level, the astral nova of the 1st heavenly layer would instantly shatter into pieces. Correspondingly, the amount of astral energy required to condense the astral nova would also be extremely terrifying. As for time, I'll just let nature take its course. When I feel that the time is right, I'll start condensing my astral nova. Qin Wendian stared at the skies. Breaking through to the heavenly Dipper realm required an extremely long process. When he finally succeeded, he would be able to sense it. Let nature take its course, and when the conditions are right, success would follow. You better hurry up, Big Bro Chu Mang is already condensing his astral nova. Bai Qing giggled, her words causing Qin Wendian's expression to stiffen as a smile appeared on his face. Big Bro Chu Mang's temperament was extremely resolute, and he was also the one who stayed at the 9th level of Yuan Fu for the longest period of time. It was only natural that he would be the first to attempt to break through to Heavenly Dipper. I know you too. Qin Wendian pinched Bai Qing's nose as he laughed, causing Bai Qing to roll her eyes. Inclining her head, Bai Qing stared at the skies as a smile appeared on her face. I still remember a few years ago when Ingij was teaching me how to form an innate link with the heavens and earth, condensing my first astral soul. Now, I'm already condensing my first astral nova. When Ingij, we all have to work hard. After speaking, she stretched out her hand. Qin Wendian laughed, hooking his hand with Bai Qing's as he said, "Work hard. I'm going to cultivate then." Bai Qing stood up, turning her head back with a smile. After which, her silhouette flickered as she departed, as innocent and adorable as ever. Even if it's for the sake of all of you, I can't slack off. Qin Wendian murmured in his heart. Right now, he wasn't alone. He had many brothers who were accompanying him, all for the sake of their own fates. He, Qin Wendian, had to rise up as well. In the heavenly fate rankings, I possess the most dazzling astral soul. My astral nova will also be the strongest. Qin Wendian's eyes gleamed with sharpness, shooting straight up to the heavens. He closed his eyes and once again lay down on the arena platform. With a flash of light, the mountainous pile of astral soul stones enveloped his body as his astral soul erupted forth. The light from the Yuan meteor stones floated in the air, frenziedly absorbing the energy within. If others were to see this mountain of Yuan meteor stones, they would surely be incomparably shocked. Did a peak-level Yuanfu cultivator need so many Yuan meteor stones to condense his astral nova? Even for the heavens chosen from the transcendent powers, they wouldn't be able to obtain so many Yuan meteor stones to break through to Heavenly Dipper. Qin Wenyan didn't want to condense an ordinary astral nova. Others used astral energy to condense their astral novas, but for him, Qin Wenyan would compress his astral energy into divine energy, and then use the vast amount of divine energy to condense an astral nova that belonged solely to him. The amount of astral energy required to condense such an astral nova was tens of times, maybe even 100 times more than what ordinary cultivators used. Spring passed and autumn came. Time was the most emotionless thing in the world. It would never stop just because it was waiting for you. In the blink of an eye, 7 months had already passed since the start of the heavenly fate rankings. The great Solar Qin clan and the other transcendent powers had surrounded the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, attempting to break through it several times. However, all of their attempts ended in failure, and there were even some who were injured and almost lost their lives. No one else dared to attempt to break through the Purgatory Ancient Formation again. However, they didn't give up on their encirclement. As long as Qin Wenyan didn't die, they wouldn't be able to rest easy. This genius who should have died after the end of the heavenly fate rankings had actually managed to preserve his life because of the ancient formation left behind by Grand Xia. Now that he was hiding inside, not daring to come out, there was nothing they could do. The discussions regarding the heavenly fate rankings in the 9 continents of Grand Xia gradually lessened, but there would still be people who would occasionally come to the outskirts of the Grand Xia ancient formation. However, they could only stare at it from afar because the great Solar Qin clan and the other transcendent powers had already sealed off the area. Even a housefly wouldn't be able to fly out of the ancient kingdom. They didn't believe that Qin Wenyan would be able to hide inside and cultivate forever. If one didn't come into contact with the outside world, their cultivation would eventually reach a bottleneck. Even if they managed to break through to Heavenly Dipper, they would still die if they exited the ancient formation. After Chen Wang came out alive, he immediately broke through to Heavenly Dipper. The Heaven Chosen of the great Solar Qin clan had broken through to Heavenly Dipper, allowing his severed arm to regrow. His arm was shattered by Qin Wenyan, but Qin Wenyan's strength was limited. He didn't have the strength to truly erase the vitality of his severed arm. After Chen Wang broke through, he could still rely on his high cultivation base to regrow his arm. Not only Chen Wang, many of the surviving rankers on the Heavenly Fate rankings were also attempting to break through to Heavenly Dipper. There was no doubt that Sherpatian had also stepped into Heavenly Dipper. Stepping into Heavenly Dipper meant that they had stepped into another level. From now onwards, their vision would no longer be limited to Yuanfu, they would be able to set their sights on an even higher level. However, there was still a knot in their hearts that hadn't been resolved. And that knot was none other than Qin Wenyan. During this half a year, many major events had occurred in the outside world. For example, Yang Fan's death in the Moon continent. Although the star-seizing manor couldn't say anything, they were still enraged. Since they couldn't kill Qin Wenyan, they decided to vent their anger on the White Deer Institute. Because they had personally witnessed the siblings Bailu Jing and Bailu Yi being extremely close to Qin Wenyan. Not only that, the White Deer Institute also had an ambiguous relationship with Qin Wenyan back then. The White Deer Institute in the eastern region of the Moon continent was suppressed, and they had no choice but to relocate, leaving the Moon continent. In one of the 9 continents located at the borders of Grand Xia, a major event also occurred. The grudge between the Green Cloud Pavilion and the 9 Mystical Palace actually erupted. Both sides were in a state of mutual hostility, as though a war could break out at any moment. Not only that, in the other regions of the Grand Xia Empire, the relationship between the transcendent powers was even more subtle than before, and conflicts would erupt frequently. However, Qin Wenyan had no idea of all this. He was still lying there, unaware of the flow of time, unaware of the changes in the outside world. How long has it been? Ouyang Guangxing stared at Qin Wenyan as he asked the others around him. About 3 months. That fellow actually used so many Yuan meteor stones, how ruthless. Fan Le murmured. The pile of Yuan meteor stones around Qin Wenyan was being depleted at a terrifying rate. His astral souls erupted forth unabashedly, transforming the astral energy within the Yuan meteor stones into astral energy before absorbing it into his body. Within his Yuan Fu, a terrifying roar thundered out, shaking the eardrums of those who heard it. I wonder how long this breakthrough would take. The crowd mused silently as they dispersed. They couldn't forget their own cultivation. Chapter 398. Cultivation was an extremely dry and uninteresting thing. One had to be able to endure the loneliness and settle their hearts. If one's will wasn't strong enough, it would be impossible for them to become experts. In the Grand Xia Royal Palace, these young geniuses were considered geniuses not only because of their talent, but also because of their resolute hearts, as well as an incomparably strong conviction. Chu Mang was the first to step into Heavenly Dipper. Today, in the cultivation grounds of Chu Mang, an incomparably sharp aura shot up into the clouds, as though it wanted to break apart the terrifying Grand Formation. That beam of light was incomparably dazzling, causing numerous silhouettes to rush over. They only saw Chu Mang sitting cross-legged as an intense light radiated from his body. It was as though the silhouette of a gigantic heaven-cleaving axe could be seen flickering in and out of existence. That gigantic axe sat within Chu Mang's Yuanfu, connecting with his astral soul. The light radiating from Chu Mang grew increasingly resplendent, as though a gigantic golden axe had appeared around his body. His entire person seemed to have transformed into the axe, exuding an unstoppable sharpness. Astral novas, this was the symbol of stepping into the Heavenly Dipper realm. The astral novas of stellar martial cultivators were the embodiment of their cultivation base, the will of their mandates, and their Tao heart. If one's cultivation base wasn't high enough, their state of heart wasn't firm enough, and their mandates weren't strong enough, they wouldn't be able to successfully condense an astral nova. Bzz. A resplendent axe light shot up into the skies, only to see Chu Mang opening his eyes as he slowly stood up. Numerous beams of axe light manifested, slashing out in all 8 directions. He stood there with his hands clasped behind his back, exuding a sense of terrifying sharpness. It was as though as long as he lifted his axe, he would be able to easily cleave people into 2. A powerful aura belonging to Heavenly Dipper gushed forth. Chu Mang had stepped into the Heavenly Dipper realm. The consumption of Yuan meteor stones is too great. Luckily, I only plan to condense 2 astral novas. Chu Mang mumbled. After which, he turned and smiled at the crowd. Although the aura of a Heavenly Dipper sovereign emanated from him and his demeanor had undergone a transformation, his smile still gave off a simple and honest feeling. However, within this simple and honest smile, there was a hint of sharpness. When the purgatory vermilion bird erupted, many experts had fallen. Among them, there were many Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. Although the amount of Yuan meteor stones they obtained was to split, it was only enough for them to break through to the next realm. After Chu Mang, Ouyang Guangxing also broke through and condensed his first astral nova. His first astral nova was in the form of a flaming giant, incomparably terrifying. And after that, on the arena platform, Qin Wentian's body underwent a transformation. Buzz! Bailu, Luo Huan and the rest stared at the silhouette on the platform. Although they were standing far away, they couldn't even breathe properly. An astral heavenly hammer shimmered in and out of existence, enveloping Qin Wenyan within. His astral soul seemed to have fused as one with the hammer. Boom! A terrifying aura permeated the air as a heavenly hammer fused with his astral soul, materializing. On the surface of the heavenly hammer, lines of runic inscriptions could be seen emanating a mountain-like pressure. Luo Huan and Bailu exchanged glances, Both of them could feel the shock in each other's eyes. When Chu Mang and Ouyang Guangxing broke through, they didn't have such a feeling. Qin Wenqian's astral heavenly hammer seemed to be different from before. It was even more terrifying, and the glow it emitted was even brighter. Terrifying amounts of astral energy flowed into the heavenly hammer, causing rumbling sounds to ring out from Qin Wenqian's yuanfu. The astral heavenly hammer grew brighter and brighter, standing tall in the air. Qin Wenyin abruptly opened his eyes, and with a grabbing motion, he directly grabbed onto the astral heavenly hammer. Feeling the surging energy within, a smile flickered in his eyes. "You didn't break through?" Bai Luyi froze, feeling bewildered. Qin Wenyin turned his head to look at her, and with an intention of his will, the heavenly hammer shrunk in size, directly entering his yuanfu. Currently, his yuanfu had expanded by several times, and the astral energy in his yuanfu pool seemed to have undergone a transformation. Every drop of astral energy contained an even more terrifying amount of astral energy, and the amount of energy contained within was many times greater than before. From yuanfu to heavenly dipper, there was a huge gap. This was because one had to comprehend the second level of mandates, expand their yuanfu, and transform their yuanfu. To many, this was an extremely difficult step, and some might even think that they would never be able to cross it in their lifetime. But to Qin Wenyin and the others, it was something that came naturally. However, at this moment, although Qin Wenqian's aura was extremely powerful, it was still at the yuanfu realm. This caused Bai Luyi to be bewildered. Even Qin Wenyin himself was frowning in confusion. "Let's condense the other two astral novas first," Qin Wenyin stated in a low voice. For those who stepped into Heavenly Dipper, it was because their mandates weren't strong enough, or because they didn't have enough resources. But since Qin Wenyin had the qualifications, he naturally wanted to condense all of his astral novas. Only then would he be able to increase his combat prowess. Qin Wenyin glanced at the depleted Yuan meteor stones, and couldn't help but to silently click his tongue. He had plundered the wealth of over 10 Heavenly Dipper sovereigns, but even so, it seemed that it wasn't enough. "I'm going to continue my cultivation." Qin Wenyin smiled at Luo Huan, Bai Luyi and the rest, as he once again lay down on the Yuan meteor stones. Releasing his astral souls, he prepared to condense his second astral nova. This was a long and arduous process. Time flowed by. Qin, Yunmingyi and Mu Feng had all stepped into Heavenly Dipper. The last one was Fan Lu. He was the last one to comprehend the second level of mandates. The stronger one's mandate was, the more stable one's foundation would be, and the easier it would be for one to step into Heavenly Dipper. Fan Lu was the last one to do so. At this moment, the others had already condensed their second and third astral novas. There was still one person who was as slow as Fan Lu, Qin Wenyin. The difficulty of condensing his astral novas was the highest. Only when Fan Lu had already condensed his second astral nova did Qin Wenyin finally condense his third astral nova. Within each of his yuanfu, there was one astral nova. The Yuan meteor stones on Qin Wenqian's body were almost completely depleted. Today, 8 to 9 months had passed since the ranking battle of the Heavenly Fate rankings. "Boss, why is your aura still at the yuanfu realm?" Fan Lu found Qin Wenyin, and upon sensing Qin Wenqian's aura, he couldn't help but feel bewildered. This wasn't normal. Qin Wenyin had already condensed 3 astral novas, and his cultivation base should be extremely stable. Why was his aura still at the yuanfu realm? "I'm not sure. Maybe it has something to do with one of the cultivation arts I cultivate in." Qin Wenyin was also puzzled by this question, but he guessed that it had something to do with the 9 astral mansions. Heavenly Dipper realm corresponded to 4 yuanfu, and as of now, he had yet to condense his 4th astral soul. Think about it carefully. Right now, I only have 2 types of mandates that have stepped into the second level. As for the 3rd type of mandate, I still haven't found the right opportunity to condense my 3rd astral nova. I plan to condense my 4th astral soul first. Do you have any suggestions for me?" Fan Lu murmured. His cultivation base hadn't reached the required level yet, so he had no way to condense his 3rd astral nova. But for someone like him, he could already be considered one of the best amongst Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. For ordinary people, when they comprehended a mandate of the second level, they would break through to the heavenly dipper realm when their cultivation base reached the peak of Yuanfu. As for those geniuses from the major powers, they would be able to condense 2 or 3 astral novas. Hence, even if they stepped into the heavenly dipper realm, the disparity between them would be even greater. For Chen Wang, not only had a few of his mandates broken through to the second level, he had even reached the advanced boundary. In addition to the fact that he had been stuck at the peak of Yuanfu for a very long time, both his cultivation base and state of heart were incomparably stable. Hence, as long as he had sufficient resources, he would be able to easily break through to the heavenly dipper realm. This was the difference between geniuses and ordinary people. From a certain perspective, although Chen Wang's breakthrough to the heavenly dipper realm was delayed, it was only a temporary disadvantage. The moment he stepped into the heavenly dipper realm, he would no longer be an ordinary heavenly dipper sovereign. If not, why would those geniuses delay their breakthrough to the heavenly dipper realm for the sake of participating in the ranking battle? Your astral souls are Fire Astral Soul, Bow and Arrow Astral Soul, as well as a spiritual control type astral soul with a devil face. Your attacks are proficient in instant kill attacks, as well as incomparably precise control over your opponent's attacks. Furthermore, after you break through to Heavenly Dipper, you would be able to control hundreds of sharp swords to kill simultaneously, and you would be able to control even more astral arrows to instant kill your opponents. The only flaw is that the explosive power of your attacks isn't strong enough. If you were to encounter someone like Chen Wang, it would be extremely difficult to deal with him. Qin Wenyan calmly continued, hence, I suggest that you choose a speed-type astral soul for your 4th astral soul to maximize your advantage. Your 4th astral soul will definitely be extremely powerful, and if you can increase the speed of your attacks, the speed of your astral arrows has already reached a certain level, and the penetrative power of your astral arrows is also extremely high. If you can increase the speed of your astral soul by 2 times, 4 times, to a terrifying extent, who would be able to evade your attacks? If a pebble slowly landed on your body, you wouldn't be able to feel anything. But if the pebble was extremely fast, it would be able to penetrate through your body. Qin Wenyan had always felt that Fan Le had a great advantage in terms of attack power. His attacks were fast, and his control over them was terrifying. If he could increase the speed of his attacks, he would definitely become a terrifying archery expert. Naturally, the most important thing is still the path you wish to walk. I'm only giving you a suggestion. Qin Wenyan patted Fan Le on his shoulders. If Fan Le didn't like his suggestion, then he might as well not listen to it. It was very important to cultivate and follow one's heart. Only then would one's state of heart be stable and unbreakable, advancing forward with indomitable will. Understood? Fan Le grinned. After which, he turned to Qin Wenyan and said, you should also think about your next astral soul. This time around, you should be able to condense an astral soul from the 6th heavenly layer. You have to make good use of this opportunity. My usage of Yuan meteor stones is quite low, so I'll leave these for you. After speaking, Fan Le left some Yuan meteor stones to Qin Wenyan before departing. Qin Wenyan didn't reject, and only smiled lightly. There was no need to be calculative between brothers. Right now, their group was already in dire need of Yuan meteor stones. Just like what Fan Le had said, it was indeed time for him to consider what astral soul he should choose for his 4th astral soul. Chapter 399. Qin Wenyan had always believed that cultivation was a matter of following one's heart. With regards to his next astral soul, he didn't have too many thoughts in his heart. Strength, attack, defense, and speed, he excelled in all of them. His only thought was that his next astral soul would allow him to grow even stronger. Hence, he didn't think too much about it and directly took action. Sleeping on the Vermilion Bird Arena platform, Qin Wenyan closed his eyes and focused on nothing else. First, he opened an astral gate, and after which he used his powerful perception to follow the astral light that cascaded down from the heavens, all the way up to the heavenly dome. The astral light at night was exceptionally dense. Qin Wentian's perception once again arrived at the 9 heavenly layers, rising upwards unceasingly. After experiencing so much tempering, his perception grew stronger and stronger. Very swiftly, he broke through the 4th heavenly layer and arrived at the 5th heavenly layer. Only now did he feel an intense pressure. I already have 3 astral souls from the 5th heavenly layer. This time around, I definitely have to break through. Qin Wentian's will was incomparably resolute. His perception continued to float upwards, and the pressure grew more and more terrifying. Passing by numerous astral souls, there was an intense light cascading down. It seemed that someone was borrowing the power of the astral souls to cultivate the peak of the 5th heavenly layer. Qin Wentian stared at the astral light before him. He let go of everything else and only had a single thought left in his mind: to rush upwards. This incomparably intense conviction brought Qin Wentian to the 6th heavenly layer. The aura contained within the astral souls here was even more profound and terrifying, with a faint hint of an ancient aura. Not only that, the number of people who could borrow the power of the astral souls here to cultivate was also getting fewer and fewer. Even for geniuses, they might need to step into the celestial phenomenon realm before they could come to the 6th heavenly layer. In other words, those who could borrow the power of the astral souls here to cultivate would at least be at the celestial phenomenon realm. Qin Wentian was an exception. It's also a flame astral soul, but that flame astral soul seems to be the flames of hell. It's so deep and terrifying that it could easily burn someone to death. Qin Wentian's gaze shifted to an astral soul not far away, but he had no intentions of forming a connection with it. His perception continued to drift upwards. Right now, he could still control his perception. That star. Qin Wentian saw a blade of stars, dark and gloomy, lying between heaven and earth. Even though he was very far away from it, Qin Wentian still felt as if he was about to be cut in half by the blade. Qin Wentian recalled the scene when Bai Qing used the 9 slashes of purgatory. If she could form an innate link with this constellation, the might of the 9 slashes of purgatory would be many times more terrifying. Qin Wentian's heart palpitated slightly, but he ignored it. He endured the trembling of his perception and continued to move forward. He saw an incomparably evil constellation that resembled a skeleton, containing a terrifying evil energy within. The other constellations in the surroundings seemed to be extremely far away from it, and on top of that constellation, a mountain of skeletons could be seen floating around. This astral soul must be extremely powerful. A thought flashed in Qin Wentian's heart. However, he didn't have the slightest intention of forming an innate link with it. His heart wasn't evil. No matter how powerful an astral soul was, it was best to discard it. Although there was an ancient saying that the power of evil could be used for righteous deeds, as long as one was cautious in their heart, Qin Wentian didn't like it. He wouldn't force himself. Within the boundless astral river, Qin Wentian encountered many astral souls. His perception even reached the boundary of the 6th heavenly layer. He wanted to cross the astral river and rush to the 7th heavenly layer, but he failed. In the 9 heavenly layers, every 3 heavenly layers formed a chasm. The colors of the astral souls condensed from the first 3 heavenly layers were faint gold in color. The middle 3 heavenly layers were pure gold in color, and the 7th heavenly layer was violet gold in color. From the 6th heavenly layer to the 7th heavenly layer, there was no way to cross it. Qin Wentian's perception was forced back. He rested for a day before attempting to break through again. He did it 7 times in a row, but each time he failed, he still couldn't find the astral soul he wanted. This time around, this was the 8th time his perception arrived at the 6th heavenly layer. He was still patiently searching. His perception once again arrived at the peak of the 6th heavenly layer. He saw an astral soul that stood guard at the peak of the 6th heavenly layer. The surroundings were boundless and desolate, with only that single astral soul. This astral soul was in the shape of a sword, like an ancient sword piercing down from the heavens. Within the resplendent light it emitted, there was a shade of darkness akin to purgatory. In the surroundings, millions and millions of sword shadows floated there, as though they were summoned by the astral soul. In this space, There were no other astral souls, only dust and debris. Without a doubt, this was a sword-type astral soul. It was like a sword that guarded the peak of the sixth heavenly layer, the Sword of Kings. If one condensed an astral soul from it, the other sword-type astral souls would all tremble in fear the instant they saw it. I'll choose you then. Qin Wentian's will rush towards the king's sword. Instantly, a terrifying pressure gushed downwards, wanting to tear apart Qin Wentian's will. It was actually rejecting his perception. How tyrannical! Qin Wentian's will grew even stronger. His will didn't fear anything as it rushed forwards, gradually descending upon the sword-type astral soul. However, the rejection force was still as terrifying as ever. It was as though it wasn't under anyone's control and refused to submit. Ordinary people didn't have the qualifications to wield its sword. This was the first time Qin Wentian encountered such a situation. How could he give up on his astral martial constellation? He felt as though his astral martial constellation was on the verge of being torn apart. Fearlessly, he rushed towards the sword-type constellation. On the Vermilion Bird Arena platform, Qin Wentian's body was trembling uncontrollably. It was as though his body was about to be torn apart. What's wrong with your junior brother? Mustang couldn't help but to ask Luo Huan anxiously upon seeing Qin Wentian's condition. I don't know, but he should be fine. Although Luo Huan said this, her beautiful eyes were filled with worry. Qin Zheng's silhouette slowly walked over. He had been standing here like a spectator, but now that he saw the abnormality in Qin Wentian's body, a sharp glint of light flashed in his eyes. He's condensing an astral soul and encountered an extremely tyrannical one, yet he's unwilling to give up. Bzz. Resplendent astral light cascaded downwards, as though numerous terrifying swords were shooting towards Qin Wentian, incomparably tyrannical. Qin Zheng was dumbstruck when he saw this scene. What constellation was Qin Wentian trying to condense an astral soul? It was so tyrannical that it was so hard to subdue it. Only to see that Qin Wentian's body was trembling more and more violently. He directly sat up as demonic qi gushed forth from his body. A terrifying will gushed forth from his heart, incomparably intense. The tyrannical will of the monarch descent permeated the air, as though it wanted to soar up into the heavens, clashing head-on with the constellation in the air. This constellation wanted him to give up. The sword of the king was not something mortals could wield. But how strong was Qin Wentian's will? How could he surrender in front of an astral soul? He wanted to become the sovereign of this constellation. Qin Wentian opened his eyes as he inclined his head towards the heavens. A terrifying beam of light shot up to the 9 heavenly layers as he stared at the astral river. Boundless astral light cascaded downwards, as his body gradually stabilized. The astral light from the swords enveloped his body as a powerful sharpness emanated forth. Gradually, an incomparably resplendent golden purgatory sword appeared above Qin Wentian's head. The golden radiance was the color of an astral soul, while the purgatory sword itself was pitch black in color. This color! Qin Zheng, Mustang and the rest felt their hearts trembling. They had never seen such a brilliant golden radiance before. This was the first time they saw one. An astral soul from the 6th heavenly layer. Mustang was speechless in his heart. Qin Wentian had given him too many shocks. This disciple of his wasn't even 21 years of age, yet he was already invincible in Chu. Heavenly Dipper sovereigns were considered legends in Chu. As his astral soul gradually condensed, the resplendent ancient sword radiated a tyrannical aura of a king. At this moment, Qin Wentian sat cross-legged, exuding a terrifying aura that no one could profane. Qin Wentian didn't stop his cultivation. His astral soul condensed, and the next step was to open his 4th Yuanfu. Right now, Qin Wentian's cultivation base was already equivalent to Heavenly Dipper. However, the opening of a Yuanfu was something that happened when he first broke through to Yuanfu. Hence, he needed to allow his 4th Yuanfu to catch up to the other 3 Yuanfu. A month later, Qin Wentian stopped his cultivation. When he opened his eyes, there were several people in the surroundings. Don't you guys want to cultivate? Qin Wendian smiled. We've already cultivated here for over 9 months. Fan Lu stated in a depressed tone. Your cultivation speed is the slowest, and you haven't even broken through to Heavenly Dipper? What's going on? Qin Wendian bitterly smiled as he shook his head. The symbol of stepping into Heavenly Dipper from Yuanfu was the birth of an astral nova and the transformation of one's Yuanfu. To ordinary people, they only had a single Yuanfu. As long as they condensed an astral nova, their Yuanfu would transform and they would officially step into Heavenly Dipper. But Qin Wendian was different. He cultivated the art of 9 astral mansions, and he had 4 Yuanfu. Most probably, out of his 4 Yuanfu, he had to condense at least 1 astral nova. This was the tyranny of the art of 9 astral mansions. He needed to condense all 4 Yuanfus before he could be considered to have stepped into Heavenly Dipper. However, the disparity between ordinary Heavenly Dipper sovereigns and ordinary Heavenly Dipper sovereigns was simply too great. If others only condensed a single astral nova, Qin Wendian would be able to suppress them to the point of death just by relying on the advantage of his astral nova. We've already broken through to Heavenly Dipper, it's about time we think of a way out. Qin Wendian murmured. He wanted to condense his 4th Yuanfu, but first, he had to comprehend the mandate of swords. Not only that, in order to step into the 2nd level, he needed to temper himself outside. Let me send all of you out. A voice drifted over, causing the gazes of everyone to turn to the person who spoke. It was none other than Qin Zheng. Although Qin Zheng was trapped here, he didn't have much interaction with them. Even when they were choosing the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia, he didn't participate. After all, he wasn't that familiar with Qin Wendian and the rest. But now, he actually said that he could send all of them out? Qin Wendian had a look of bewilderment on his face, while Yun Mingyi's eyes brightened. When I cultivate in the unmatched realm, I'm the same as you, possessing the authority to cultivate in all 36 mountains. Also, don't forget, I'm proficient in spatial manipulation. As for who my master is in the unmatched realm, I'm sure Yun Mingyi knows about it. My master has given me a life-saving treasure. As Qin Zheng spoke, he took out an ancient scroll that emanated a powerful spatial energy. As long as you activate the spatial energy within this ancient scroll, it will be able to teleport all of us 10,000 miles away. This is my life-saving treasure, and just nice, I can use it to send all of you out. However, there's one thing I have to make clear first. This is a random teleportation. In other words, all of us will be teleported to different locations. Since you have such a treasure, why didn't you leave earlier? Qin Wendian stared at Qin Zheng in bewilderment. The majority of us here are cultivators from the unmatched realm. Although the unmatched realm doesn't interfere in the disputes of the outside world, Master and the other elders wouldn't wish for us to die outside. Qin Zheng calmly replied. He, Qin Wendian, Yun Mingyi, Chu Mang, Fan Lu and Ouyang Guangxing were all cultivators from the unmatched realm. Fine, let's leave then. Qin Wendian stared at the crowd as he continued. After we exit, all of us will leave Ginkgo immediately. There's no need to gather together again, it would attract unwanted attention. Ouyang, Qing, you guys return to your respective powers, no one will dare to touch you. Chu Mang, Fan Lu, you guys can return to the unmatched realm in the Azure continent. Bai Lu Yi and Bai Lu Jing, you guys can return to the White Deer Institute. As for Master and Sister Luo Huan, Yun Mingyi and Mu Feng naturally didn't need him to worry about them. Only Mustang and Luo Huan were left. I won't be leaving, it's not bad to cultivate here. Mustang smiled. When you're strong enough, remember to pay a visit to the 9 Mystical Palace. In that case, I'll stay here to accompany Master. Luo Huan giggled. We'll wait for you to bring us out. Qin Wendian's countenance faltered, as a sense of melancholy appeared in his heart. After which, he nodded his head lightly, glancing at Little Rascal in Luo Huan's embrace. Little Rascal let out a squeaking sound as it leaped into the air, turning its head back to look at Qin Wendian. You're not leaving as well? Qin Wendian asked Little Rascal. Yeah. Little Rascal nodded its head. Fine, you stay here to accompany Master and Sister Luo Huan. I'll definitely come back to fetch you guys. Qin Wendian nodded. after which he left behind some extra yuan meteor stones as well as some cultivation arts and innate techniques for his master and senior sister, telling them to focus on their cultivation. When in Gij, I don't want to be separated from you. Bai Qing held onto Qin Wentian's hand as she stared at him. You're so weak, wouldn't you be a burden if you stayed by my side? Qin Wentian laughed, his words causing Bai Qing to stick out her tongue. She knew that Qin Wentian was intentionally angering her. Fine, I'll go back and focus on my cultivation. After I control the mystic moon sect, I'll come back to help you. Bai Qing smiled. Her expression was extremely adorable, as though she was joking. However, if one thought about the devil arts she cultivated, one would know that beneath that adorable smile of hers, there was an extremely strong determination and determination. Qin Wenyan nodded his head as he turned his gaze onto the others. He drew in a deep breath, feeling somewhat reluctant. However, he had to roam Grand Xia alone. Chapter 400. In the Moon Continent, at the top of the Pill Emperor Hall, on top of the flight of stairs, a celestial mist permeated the air. The main hall of the Pill Emperor Hall towered into the clouds, and in the entire Moon Continent, people from all 8 directions paid homage to it. To many, the Pill Emperor Hall was a sacred ground. Those from the Pill Emperor Hall were all proficient in pill concoction and could even save lives. Everyone's impression of the Pill Emperor Hall was much better compared to the other transcendent powers. Within the towering main hall, the fragrance of pills pervaded the air, and there was a faintly discernible immortal energy. However, behind those halls, there was a door to a forbidden area that outsiders were never allowed to step foot into. Over here, there were experts guarding it. The immortal chi within the gate transformed into a dense mist, causing many disciples of the Pill Emperor Hall to be lost in reverie. This place was rumored to be the sacred ground of the Pill Emperor Hall. It was rumored that there would often be outstanding holy maidens of the Pill Emperor Hall who would be chosen to enter and undergo the baptism of the sacred ground. When they exited, their immortal chi would be imbued with an even stronger talent, causing countless people to revere them. However, there was a rule in the Pill Emperor Hall. Once one stepped into the sacred grounds of the Pill Emperor Hall, it signified that they would forever be a member of the Pill Emperor Hall. They were not allowed to marry outside of the Pill Emperor Hall, and their life and death would be in the hands of the Pill Emperor Hall. At this moment, within the forbidden gate that blocked the path of countless disciples of the Pill Emperor Hall, a silhouette could be seen walking through it. This silhouette was none other than Luo He from the Pill Emperor Hall. Luo He slowly walked forwards, moving towards the end of the immortal mist. In front of her, a precipice appeared, and on the edge of the precipice, there was actually a silhouette. It was none other than her senior apprentice brother, as well as the master of Zhanqin. At this moment, Luo He appeared extremely restrained as she slowly walked to the edge of the cliff, casting her gaze downwards. If others could see what Luo He saw right now, they would definitely be scared out of their wits. In the sacred ground of the Pill Emperor Hall, at the bottom of the precipice, there was actually a mountain range of skeletons. The skeleton mountain range was filled with a dense death aura. At the bottom of the skeleton mountain range, there were skeletons buried here forever. It was such a terrifying scene. There were many black stone platforms below, and there were many white-clothed women sitting on them. They were all shockingly beautiful, but their expressions were slightly dull. In the middle of these white-robed young girls, there was a terrifying skeleton that seemed to emit a cold red light. It seemed to have fluctuations of life. I heard that you prepared the 81st Dan body for me. An evil and cold voice drifted over, as though it came from the skeleton. Luo He's heart trembled as she glanced at her senior brother beside her. Her countenance was extremely unsightly. I will do my best. Luo He respectfully replied. Umph. A cold snort echoed in Luo He's heart, causing her countenance to turn pale. I hope you know your limits. Luo He's ice-cold voice pierced right into Luo He's heart. She bowed slightly and replied, I will do my best. I'll give you another year. Luo He nodded her head as she silently retreated. She was thinking in her heart, Ching, I initially wanted you to inherit my legacy. But on account of your talent, I'll give you one last chance. If you continue to be obstinate, don't blame me for being merciless. Today, a year had already passed since the heavenly fate rankings battle. In the central regions of Grand Xia, there was a city named Sword Reverend City. Although this city was not as prosperous as the nine-state city, it was still very famous in the region of hundreds of thousands of miles. It was the other city that worshipped swordsmanship besides the nine-state city and the yen-state city. And it was precisely because of this that it was named Sword Reverend City. The reason why the Sword Reverend City was so famous was because outside of its city gates, there was a land of precipices. The edges of this precipice were extremely flat, and terrifying sword chi could be felt emanating from it. It was as though a towering gigantic sword had sliced through the earth, creating this precipice between two pieces of earth. 9 incomparably sharp swords were inserted into the ground at the edge of the precipice, receiving the worship of millions of people. Hence, this ancient city was named Sword Reverend City. Recently, there was a commotion in Sword Reverend City that was being discussed by many. A few months ago, a young swordsman arrived at the outskirts of Sword Reverend City. This swordsman was clad in white and had an ancient sword strapped to his back, exuding an air of elegance and elegance. This young man comprehended the will of swords on the precipice and sparred with others every day. His improvement was like 1,000 miles in a single day, and within a short span of 3 days, he had already comprehended the will of swords. The first level of insight of swords was sharpness. The sharpness of the sword was indestructible and indestructible. This young man comprehended the will of swords in 3 days. 10 days later, his will of swords was at the advanced boundary. A month later, his will of swords was at the transformation boundary. In less than 3 months, his will of swords was at the perfection boundary. Every time he improved, many people witnessed it with their own eyes. They couldn't help but believe that there was such a genius in swords. Not only that, there was something even more terrifying. This young man's comprehension of swords was also extraordinary. When he sparred with others, he was actually able to learn the sword techniques of others without fail. This caused countless people to be stunned. This young man only used a short span of 3 months to become an expert in swords. Not only that, every time he sparred with others, he would use the same level of insight as his opponent, using only sword techniques. Everyone discovered that no matter who challenged him, he would be able to defeat them all. His strength was incomparably impressive. Only after he was invincible on the precipice did the young man step into Sword Reverend City. Within the Sword Reverend City, at this moment, this young man was sparring with another young man around 26 or 27 years of age. Both of their swords were exquisite, and their sword chi permeated the air. Brother Qin's swordsmanship is truly profound. I am impressed. The two of them separated. The other young man sheathed his sword as he stared at the young man opposite him. A look of appreciation could be seen in his eyes. Such a young man could already be considered a demon-level genius in the Tao of the sword. This young man was naturally Qin Wenyin. After he exited the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, he didn't linger in Ginkgo. He directly left and came to the Sword Reverend City. He needed to first condense his 4th astral nova and step into Heavenly Dipper. Naturally, although Qin Wenyin didn't have any Heavenly Dipper chi, he had 3 astral novas. From a certain perspective, he could already be considered a Heavenly Dipper sovereign. Isn't Brother Zong's swordsmanship also extremely profound? As expected of a descendant of a famous sect. Qin Wendian laughed. Zong Qian's eyes flashed with a bright light as he laughed. Seems like Brother Qin has already guessed my identity. Truth be told, I'm none other than Zong Qian from the Zong clan of the Sword Reverend City. The 3 major powers of the Sword Reverend City were respectively the Zong clan, Li clan, and Heavenly Sword sect. These 3 powers were the strongest in the Sword Reverend City, and countless people had joined them, becoming their disciples. These 3 major powers were truly famous in the Sword Reverend City, with experts as common as the clouds. Among the 3 major powers, the Zong clan was the most low-profile, the Li clan was the sharpest, and the Heavenly Sword sect was the most famous. The first choice of countless youths would naturally be the Heavenly Sword sect. After all, the other two major powers were clans. My name is Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian nodded. Truth be told, Brother Qin, I have a question. There's a rumor in the Sword Reverend City that Brother Qin stepped onto the path of the sword 3 months ago, and within 3 months, your mandate of swords had already reached the perfection boundary. Is this true? Zhong Qian's personality was straightforward, and he didn't hide anything as he asked. He was extremely curious about this matter, and there were even many who speculated that Qin Wendian was intentionally trying to gain fame. In truth, he was already proficient in swordsmanship. If not, how could his comprehension abilities be so terrifying? If I say yes, would Brother Zhong believe me? Qin Wendian laughed. Zhong Qian paused for a moment before replying, If it was before, I wouldn't believe you. But now that I've met Brother Qin, if Brother Qin says it's true, I'll definitely believe you. Why is that? Qin Wendian curiously asked. Swordsmen cultivate the heart of the sword. They are like their swords, and their swords are like their swords. For those whose swordsmanship is strange and crafty, their character would definitely be like this as well. Brother Qin's sword is sharp and straight, walking the path of tyranny. Once the sword is unleashed, it will advance courageously, and there's a hint of the Tao of Kings within it. This is the righteous path of swordsmanship. How can I not believe you? Zhong Qian laughed, causing a look of astonishment to appear on Qin Wendian's face. Zhong Qian was as expected of someone who came from a famed sect, to be able to discern people through their swordsmanship. Not only that, from what I've observed, Brother Qin's swordsmanship, it's extremely pure. Just casually standing there, it's like a sword. If Brother Qin doesn't cultivate the way of the sword, it would be a waste. Brother Zhong is praising me too much. Qin Wendian bitterly smiled as he shook his head. The two of you hit it off right from the start. I'm slightly older than you and can be considered as your elder brother. Today, I will definitely bring you back to the clan. The two of us will drink to our heart's content and discuss our swordsmanship. This Zhong Qian was a passionate person. As he spoke, he grabbed onto Qin Wendian's arm, causing Qin Wendian to furrow his brows. After which, he turned his gaze onto Zhong Qian, only to see that Zhong Qian's countenance was extremely pure and sincere. Just like what Zhong Qian had said, sword cultivators were straightforward in nature. They were like their swords, and their swords were like them. This Zhong Qian's swordsmanship was both straightforward and swift. He was also a straightforward person, and would do whatever he wanted to do. However, at this moment, not too far away, sword chi whistled through the air. Inclining his head, he saw 3 swords speeding through the air, instantly arriving at Qin Wendian's location. 3 silhouettes, 2 males and 1 female, could be seen standing on top of the 3 swords. The 2 males were around 30 years old, while the female had beautiful features and was around 25 or 26 years old. Her skin was extremely soft and supple, as though it could be broken by a gentle breeze. Upon seeing the appearance of these 3, Zhong Qian instantly released Qin Wendian's arm. However, the 3 in the air had already seen the earlier scene. Their eyes flickered as they stared at Qin Wendian with sharpness. Are you the swordsman cultivating at the Sword Reverence Cliff? The young man on the left had a blood-colored mole in the center of his brows, giving off a tyrannical aura. He stood on his sword and stared at Qin Wendian as he coldly asked, "That's me, Qin." Qin Wendian replied, "I initially thought you were a solitary sword cultivator and wanted to spar with you. Who would have thought that you would be someone invited by the Zhong clan?" The young man on the right had a pair of sword-like eyebrows, giving off a sense of sharpness. I've already said this before, it's impossible for this brat to comprehend the Sword Reverence Cliff in just 3 months. He must have lied to everyone and is a sword cultivator. If not, the Zhong clan wouldn't have invited him to the Sword Reverence City at this time. The female's lips were thin, and her words were unkind. Qin Wendian furrowed his brows, only to see Zhong Qian coldly interjected, "Lin Yan, this is the first time Brother Qin has come to the Sword Reverence City. He has nothing to do with my Zhong clan." "Is that so?" What's the use of trying to cover things up now? Since your Zong clan has already invited someone over, I'm sure you're already prepared for battle. Now that there's a chance, why don't you spar with me? The female spoke in a cold tone. As the sound of her voice faded, the young man with sword-like eyebrows beside her pressed his palm into the air. Instantly, a terrifying sword chi gushed forth, gushing towards Qin Wenyan. Zong Qian stepped out, blocking in front of Qin Wenyan as he coldly stated, "This is a grudge between the Zong and Li clan, don't implicate others. Since you dared to do it, why don't you dare to admit it? Zong Qian, since you invited him over, why are you afraid of a battle?" The countenance of the young man with sword-like eyebrows grew sharper. Pressing his palm downwards, an even stronger blood-colored sword light whistled through the air, extremely terrifying to behold. Zong Qian also erupted forth with a powerful aura. The young man in front of him wasn't someone easy to deal with. Although Qin Wentian's mandate of swords was at the perfection boundary, he was still too young and his cultivation base wasn't strong enough. Not only that, when he exchanged blows with Qin Wenyan, he could only sense that Qin Wenyan had only deleted his mandate of swords. He couldn't sense anything else. Zong Qian was worried that if Qin Wenyan were to act, Qin Wenyan would definitely be at a disadvantage. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.